Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for May 13, 2014. We'll begin with the special order calendar, decision items. Item number 1, 17707BZ, 886 Glenmore Avenue, Brooklyn.
Jordan Mose from Sheldon Lobel.
Motion to grant?
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez. Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 2, 37103BZ, 37203BZ, 663 and 655 Fifth Avenue, Manhattan.
Motion to grant?
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Continued hearing items. Item number 3, 457 56BZ, 152 154 India Street, Brooklyn.
Morning, Todd Dale for the applicant. From review session, I understand there are a few issues that were raised. The first regarding the barbed wire, we did remove that in the front. We contacted the owner, and I guess there are still some poles, but they're part of the actual fence construction. He said he's going to have someone go out and take a look to see if he can move those additional poles without tearing down the whole fence. But in any instance, regardless, would agree to any condition regarding no barbed wire in the front of the lot.
Right, because sometimes those added pieces are actually a part of the main structure.
Right,
So
so-
I don't know, they'd have to cut it off.
Right, yes, some of them do look like vertical extensions, but the other ones are those angled add-ons, so if they
Yes,
bring those, that
he's
would be
going to have someone out there this week to take a look at it, see if there's anything else that can be done. But as I said, any condition regarding that.
Okay.
Okay, great.
There was a question regarding the certificate of occupancy, and did a little backtracking and realized that there was a word transition that caused some of the confusion. The original grant back in the 50s was for accessory parking and consumer parking. And it was approved that way, and the COs were updated saying consumer parking. It's always been monthly parking. For some reason, the most recent resolution and then the certificate of occupancy was based on that, changed the word consumer to customer. But it's never been customer parking for the warehouse use that's next door. They don't have customers generally, just a few employees maybe who park there. But it is used primarily as a monthly parking lot. It's been
For the
used
neighborhood?
as a residents of the neighborhood.
Okay.
They pay monthly fee. That's what it's been for decades, and I think it's just the word transition that caused confusion. So, you know, upon this approval, they'll make sure that the certificate of occupancy reflects consumer rather than customer, and we'll make sure that the resolution uses the proper word.
All right. Can you provide whatever historical documents that you have related
Sure.
to the consumer parking
Sure.
versus customer parking?
You know, beyond what the resolution says, maybe
Is it just through the resolutions that
well,
you...
the resolutions up until the very last one said consumer, 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 and they
Okay.
separated it, and it's just this last one. It looks like someone changed the word consumer to customer,
Okay.
and that's where the confusion started.
All right, so we have the resolutions already on record. Does the board have any concerns about this, if this parking lot is used by people within the neighborhood for monthly parking? No. Okay, good. Any speakers on this item? Yes.
No, I just
Commissioner
wanted to
Hinkson.
follow up on the change of CO. Your CO currently says it's a residential building, and you are telling us it's a factory. Can you get that?
When we submitted that CO, if you actually look, it's an administrative area at the Department of Buildings. When you go and you click on the website and it links to a Cropsey Avenue address. So the CO that's listed there for residents is for a Cropsey Avenue building. We don't know why the link was there. We've submitted the accurate CO to them and asked them to change it. I don't know how long it takes
get
DOB
it
to
on
change the
their
link, but
But you have the actual C of O?
and it was submitted as part of the last
Okay,
submission. Right.
All
It's
right.
just a error.
Okay.
with
okay,
it.
so we have the correct
You do
one.
have the correct one in the record.
But the reality is that this parking lot is being used not only by a warehouse, but also by
Right.
other uses.
Excellent.
Okay, any speakers on this item? All right, if there are no speakers, we can close the hearing.
Chair
I'm
Srinivasan?
sorry, we'll just, you're going to get back to us on the hardware for,
We'll get back to you on the hardware, and we'll also clarify the consumer-customer.
okay. So what we can do is we can leave the record open for you to make a submission, but I think we can close the hearing. Okay, so if you can submit to us on the 27th of May, and we can vote this out on June 10th. Make a motion to close.
Chair Srinivasan?
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Item number 4, calendar number 2496BZ, 213 Madison Street, Manhattan, Rothkrug Inspector.
Good morning, Todd Dale for the applicants.
You've asked for an adjournment?
Yes, they've taken the flag down. They need more time to take the apparatus down. It's being taken down this week, so we expect to be able to submit proof in 2 weeks. I don't know what the calendar is.
That seems fine. If you can submit on May 27th, we can continue this on June 10th.
Item number 5, calendar number 1600BZ, 24404 Francis Lewis Boulevard, Queens, Vassalotti Associate Architects.
Good morning, Hiram Rothkook for Vassalotti Associates.
All right, are you aware of the comments that we
I'm
made?
aware of the
Okay.
comments
So there were a
from,
few questions about some of the equipment that you have on site and how it works vis-a-vis the parking spots. So I think Commissioner Montes really wanted you to mention that and show that there's no interference with parking on
correct.
site.
I'm going to have to address that in writing. Originally, the commissioner was concerned about the adjacent residential, which isn't residential. It's an actual business. But now there's a new question with regard to the accessory parking for the convenience store and for the gas station. So, we'll have to we'll look at that and address that. But it shouldn't take long. It should be something I could turn around very quickly.
Okay.
And it might include eliminating one of the
pumps or-
vacuums because
okay.
3 is a little bit excessive for this particular site.
Okay. Commissioner Montanez also had a question or actually a comment about landscaping. There's a landscaping strip behind which hasn't been done. If you could take a look at that.
Okay,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. Are there other questions for Mr. Rothbrook? Any speakers on this item? All right. We can continue the hearing if you can submit to us in 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
May 27th, we can review this on June 10th.
Thank you.
New cases, item number 6, 751 of 78BZ, 200-15 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Good morning, Todd Dale for the applicant. From review session, I understand there were some questions raised regarding the hours of operation. We'll do a survey of area businesses just to confirm that the current hours are in line, and we do believe that they're in line with that, but we'll provide that information to the board. Regarding the container that is being completed, and I actually think it's been completed, I haven't had a chance to see it.
It's a
It's not-
container?
It is a container. It's not an enlargement or change to the
Okay.
existing building. If, on the previously approved plans, there was a container shown on the plans. It's not shown on the current plans. We'll have the current plan updated to show the location of the container. I believe that the tenant wanted to have the container constructed, and it has been constructed, and then figure out what was best for the site for its location so we could reflect it on the plan. But it echoes the previously approved plans that had this container.
But does the container include all the tires that were put outside? Because there was a lot.
There were a lot of tires. They're going to do a combination of storing some tires, I believe, in the container, or storing other materials that are in the building in the container and keeping the tires in the building. The end goal, and the property owner agrees to it and the tenant understands, no open storage of tires. And to be honest, I'm not sure yet what the breakdown is of tires in the container in the building, but they won't be open storage on the
Okay,
lot.
so you'll
And-
provide us with photographs of
Definitely
the
provide-
container as well as showing that there are no tires
Correct.
that are stored.
And then we'll also change the plan to show the container.
The
like
location of
the
that.
location of the container.
Commissioner?
When I went to the site, there was a container in place, so you're just replacing it and putting a new one in that same spot on the western portion, like at the angle?
Or maybe that is the
That
one.
might be the new container.
Oh, that might be the new one.
I went to the site the most recently, probably 2 months ago, so I'm not, it's just down the road. I'm actually going to drive by it today, I'll take a look at it, see what's going on, but I believe that that's the new container.
Okay.
But we'll make sure that's on the plan. As I said, we agree, the community board raised this, we agree, no open storage of tires, and we'll make sure that in the end, that's what's going to happen. But just to clarify, there's no physical change to the existing building that's proposed.
Okay.
There's also a comment about the donation bin. They're actually going to relocate the donation bin to provide more space on the site, just to contribute or remove maybe some of the clutter that's on the site. Is there any other?
Are there any other questions? All right. Any speakers on this item? Any speakers? Be given 3 minutes. Mr. Euler.
Good morning. My name is Henry Euler. I'm first vice president of the Auburndale Improvement Association. We are here to back this particular proposal, but with all the conditions that Community Board 11 put into this particular application. We've been very concerned about the display of tires outside. The first 3 pictures that you see in the set of pictures that I brought show those tires. It looks
right.
tacky. It's unacceptable to the neighborhood. As far as the container goes, we're a little bit concerned about that, exactly what location it will be finally located in. So we are worried a little bit about that, but it's an improvement over having those tires on display. We're also we're upset over the tires, the old tires that were stored in the northwest section of the property. That also look terrible. And, when it rains, water collects in the tires, and that's a breeding ground for mosquitoes and things during warmer months. We have O&M Hall Nursing Home right across the street, and that facility contains over 400 residents. And we also have residential housing nearby, so we don't want the tires out. We also want the hours of operation reduced to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during weekdays, and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. And we want the business to be closed on Sunday as it is now. We feel that operating till 10 p.m. during the week is an intrusion upon the residents in the area because there's a lot of in and out of vehicles and motors running and things like that. And the residents deserve a break. And 8 p.m. seems to us a reasonable time for the business to close. We also want the certificate of occupancy updated. We're also, as I said before, we want all the conditions that the community board cited in their decision to be brought forth. And that includes no parking of vehicles on the sidewalk, no repairing of vehicles outside of the bays, and no overnight parking of vehicles that it's rented space. We don't want that in our community. We understand if vehicles are going to be serviced the next day, that's a different story. We did have one additional concern about the color of the building. Now, Community Board 11 did not address it, but it's of quite a shocking hot pink color. And several residents have complained to us about that. And we think that as a sign of good faith, that the owner, when he does repaint the building, should choose a more neutral color or a more subdued color so that it fits in better with our community. After all, a variance is a privilege. The business is going to be operating in what's normally a residential neighborhood, and they should try to make sure that the community is happy with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Euler. Just a quick question. So you're not asking them to change the color of the building right now, but it's when they do their next repainting, they should look at something
I think
more?
that would be a fair thing to say, yeah.
Okay. And the overnight parking, it's really that you don't want it to be used as public parking where somebody's paying just to park their car.
That's right.
But vehicles that are going to be serviced the next day, you understand that sometimes they may stay.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Any
Actually, with regards to the color, if they want to do it now, that's okay with us, too.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker?
Good morning. My name is Terry Pumari. I'm president of the Auburndale Improvement Association. Henry makes a wonderful argument. He is our prime speaker and writer. But I want to support just about everything he said because we've learned, especially once we went through zoning, that variance works for us on that particular area of Northern Boulevard. We have only a few things that are absolutely commercial overlay. And we are anxious to support a good business. People enjoy having the business locally, like a gas station or Taco Bell or whatever. They've been through here. But we want it to be a partnership so that business prospers and we prosper. Now, these tires on the property may have encouraged another tire company further down west, Auburndale Tires, to put not as many as Genesis, but some tires on the curb, right, really on the public sidewalk on the curb. Good advertising, but we're convinced that it's illegal. We're working on that, but they're not there as a variance, so that the variance actually gives us a little bit more feedback into what's going on. We're happy to have the business there if they comply with the variance, but we want to make it certain if they are, I think they are new to this area and maybe the variance situation in Queens. The community will be watching the business through the period of the variance, and we will keep notes to their advantage or to their disadvantage, because ultimately a variance is up, and we have to come before the board and mention how the business and the community got along. And if it works fine, fine for both of us. But we're reminding the community that, the business owner, that we will be there, and we encourage him to follow all the details that have been proposed by the community board and supported by Auburndale Improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers? Mr. Dale?
Todd Dale again for the applicant. I think everyone's agreed the tires are an issue. And
Tires are an
we'll take care of
issue,
it.
but I think some of the other points that they've raised seem reasonable. I think you should go back and look at the hours of operation and
We will.
speak with your client and see if they can abide by that.
We'll definitely look at the
And-
hours.
And if you could speak to the issue of the overnight parking. I know they've had taken some photographs. It's not clear what those vehicles are, but if you could let us know what the situation is, and at least give us an affidavit from the owners that they understand this would be a condition, that they have to follow it, that they cannot use this for overnight parking except for vehicles that are part and parcel of the repair. And that also all repair has to be within the base.
We understand, yes, and we'll address that.
All right, any other questions? How much time do you need? Did you look at also the color of the building? Although I like pink, but anyway, can you take a look at it?
I will bring it up as an issue
Okay.
and reserve
But
my
whenever they
judgment on
do their
pink.
maintenance, it's worthwhile to look at something that's
That's
more
fine,
compatible.
yes, I'll,
Okay.
just because I don't know timing on the tires, as I said, I think they've started.
Okay.
I don't know calendar-wise, 3 weeks to submit. I don't know if that works with the board's calendar. If not, we could probably do it in 2.
No, that's fine. We
Okay.
can ask, you can submit to us on June 10th, and we can you can submit to us on June 3rd or June 10th. Which one would you?
June 3rd's perfect.
June 3rd, okay, and then we can have the hearing on the 17th, and you'd provide us information both to Auburndale Civic as well as the Community Board. Okay, great.
Item number 7, calendar number 27886BZ, 1677 Bruckner Boulevard, the Bronx, Eric Palatnik.
Hello, good morning, Eric Palatnik. We attended the community board last night, and they fully supported the application.
They did?
And their full board will be on May 22nd, yes.
Okay, so that was the Land Use Committee and the full board?
Land use committee was last evening. The full board is May 22nd.
Second, Vice Chair, I know you had a question or
Yeah, I
comment?
think you just had a typo on page 9. where
Yeah, I
you
saw
said
that.
The speaker is 100 inches. I think you might mean 100 feet.
100 feet, yeah.
Yeah, why don't you-
Yeah, we used the semicolon instead of the apostrophe. We will correct that.
No, you used ditto marks instead.
Ditto marks instead of the, okay, we'll correct that.
All right, any other questions? Any speakers on this item? Any speakers? Okay. All right, what I suggest we do is we can close the hearing. I think we'll leave the record open for the community board. As you know, they already did comment on this regarding going back to the previous approval. It's just a matter of these small little changes to the space.
And remodeling of the exterior.
I'm sorry?
And the remodeling of the exterior.
And the exterior. All right, they didn't get a chance to view that, is that correct?
Last night they did, yeah.
They did, okay.
Last evening they did, yeah.
All right, so we can Does the board have any concerns about that? We'll leave the record open for the community board. Yes, do you have a question? Okay. Just distracted for a moment. Okay, so we can close the hearing. We'll leave the record open for the community board. And if the community board has any questions or concerns, can you please respond to us? In the
Yes, there were none last night. They were very supportive of it.
Okay. All right, so if you can submit to us on June 3rd, that'll give them enough time to submit as well as any response back, and we can vote this out on June 17th.
Thank you.
Make a motion to close.
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Appeals calendar. Decision items. Item number 8, calendar number 4314A, 242 West 76th Street, Manhattan, Rosen and Rosen.
Motion to grant?
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Continued hearings. Item number 9, calendar number 26607A, 1602 through 1610 Avenue S, Brooklyn. The law officer Frederick A. Becker.
Good morning, Larry J. Altman from the Law Office of Frederick A. Becker. We did attend your executive session yesterday and heard your concern. We do have a revised letter specifying that they are committed to spend $6 million to complete this project, which is quite a bit more than this project is anticipated to cost.
Can you show us the letter? You have copies?
I do.
Okay.
I'm handing up 5 copies of the letter.
This is virtually the same as the letter you submitted last week.
As
It just put a number in. It
That is-
doesn't, what I was looking for was a firmer commitment or
Okay.
something in the form of an affidavit from the property owner.
We'll be glad to
says
do that.
they in fact have financing in place. Because for the last 4 years, not a thing has been done on this property.
We'll be happy to get you an affidavit. Since it was yesterday, we were unable to get it for today. We were able to get that for today, so we didn't want to bring you nothing. We thought it was better to bring you this letter with at least a number on it. So an affidavit from the property owner with the commitment would be acceptable to your board?
I think it's only my issue.
Right.
I think my colleagues don't necessarily have the same
Okay?
concern
Right,
that I
but-
have.
In that case,
An
Vice Chair
affidavit
Collins,
would
would that
do?
be acceptable to
I
you?
believe,
Okay.
yes, that their financing is in place.
Okay, an affidavit from the owner that financing is in place.
That is if it is in place.
It is in place, yes.
Okay, all right, good.
This company right here that you're seeing on this letter
They're
is the
the
company
people who-
providing the financing. They're not the property owners.
Correct.
So,
They're from Houston. They have
That is
all of their
correct.
properties in Houston. Right, nothing in here. Okay.
Okay, there are speakers on this item? Yes, please come forward. Given 3 minutes.
Good morning. Before we start this, I want to say that Community Board 15 supports our position. I spoke with Terry Scavo yesterday, the chairwoman. I am representing my neighbors, and I'm a board member of Madison Marine Homecrest. Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I am Dr. Bud Heyman. I'm the Chief of Medicine at Bellevue Hospital Correctional Health Services. I live at 1624 Avenue West, which is located at the other end of the short block from the site in question. The 1610 Avenue S LLC has the right to request another extension to building on its vested property, but with property rights also come obligation, and we do not feel this applicant has any sense of the requirements to be a good citizen or good property owner. We also have property rights, which we feel are being violated. According to New York Magazine, during the Bloomberg administration, nearly 40% of the city's landmass was rezoned, and as you know, much of it downzonings or rezonings to make the zoning reflect the built condition and therefore to preserve the low-rise single and two-family neighborhoods or neighborhoods of very small apartment buildings. You also know that a 6-story, 25-unit apartment building on a block of two-family detached homes is enormous, out of scale, and will violate the character of our neighborhood. It is not in your purview today to revisit the vesting of this property, which is contrary to the new zoning, but it is in your discretion to decide if the property owners have the right to another extension. We believe that they do not. The applicant is a year and a half late in filing for an extension. Why? The sidewalk in front of the site has been in disrepair, serious disrepair, since 2008. Why? It's the responsibility of the property owners to make sure the sidewalk is not a safety hazard. When it snowed, all these years, the snow was never shoveled. This year, the site was a dumping ground in previous years as well for refuse. Rodents were frequently noted in the unkempt lot. The excavated site, we understand, was deemed to be dangerous to the children going to the schools across the street. As a result, the city filled in the site and, as we understand, erected an fence at the expense of approximately $60,000, a fee that should be the owner's obligation. And yes, again, we understand that this fee has not been paid. And despite the applicant's assurances to the BSA in 2008 that it would be done, there is no evidence that the concrete poured for that site was ever tested for strength. You can look it up. We believe that by the owner's failure to be a good citizen and a good neighbor, our property rights are being violated. I keep using the word violate because there is no proper substitute for what happened here. The state of the site has probably caused our homes to lose value. Would you buy a house on a block with a badly maintained excavation site? We understand that construction sites are always nettlesome and messy, but they cannot be allowed to be dangerous. When the city has to temporarily take over, the site is beyond what can and should be allowed. In conclusion, given the history, how can you be confident that the applicant will finish construction within the terms of the extension if granted? The applicant may ask for your discretionary judgment allowing them another extension, but we urge that you exercise your discretion in the light of their continuous flouting of their responsibilities as a landowner by creating a danger and an eyesore in our neighborhood. We are asking you to consider these issues when making your determination. The applicant has abrogated its rights for extension. We are asking you to deny this extension, and thank you for your deliberations and consideration. It's been a hell of 8 years, 7 years for these people.
Thank you.
We feel abused.
Thank you. You can give copies. Next speaker, Mr. Jaworski.
Good morning. Ed Jaworski, President, Madison Marine Homecrest Civic Association. In this case, the BSA is being asked to serve as a marketing tool and as a purveyor of Blythe. The site is for sale, and the owners are asking this body to help them market it by saying all permits in place. Coincidentally, the Big for Sale sign is flipped over and hidden behind a clothing collection box right now, coincidentally with this hearing. In a New York Times story, and by the way, the reporter was present with Dr. Heyman and myself, the owner said, "We know how to deal with people like you." And that quote is in the bottom of one of the stories that I handed to Mr. Costanza. We found that means letting it become a dumping ground. A neighbor who lived next door passed away from stress because she watched her backyard and her part of her driveway collapse into the hole. Last month, our Civic had a meeting with the Department of Buildings, Sanitation, and other agencies, and we took a tour of several sites of concern in the neighborhood with a TV news crew. This was one of the sites that we pointed out to them. I submit that under the Department of Buildings stalled sites rule, it is not even eligible. This site is not even eligible for a stalled site application, since it's an active stop work order site, owes over $50,000 in unpaid fines. Thank you very much, and I hope you'll take our concerns into consideration.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers? Ms. Halpin?
I would just like to point out to your board that this is not as though they have been going for extension after extension. This is a reasonable request. The market was, say, less than ideal after this case was granted vesting, and they are now prepared to proceed, as your board is aware, and we will be providing you an affidavit attesting to the fact that financing is in place, in addition to the letter that I did provide you today.
All right. I know that there are a lot of active violations on the site. Can you speak to that either now or in writing?
We actually did address that in writing to your board, I believe.
You have already?
That is correct.
And can you summarize
Effectively,
it? Because
they
there are
will-
quite a few.
There are.
How
and I-
many are open?
Let me look at my file to give you an exact number. Bear with me. There we go. There are 6 DOB violations that are active. And as far as the ECB violations, there are 9 that are currently open. But as we did tell your board, we had some information on them. I had given you a specific listing of each of the violations and what was happening. But effectively, the majority were fence violations. And these will all have to be resolved, of course, prior to construction.
Are they resolved as of today?
Some of them are, some of them are not. But we will not be able to get a permit until all of them are resolved.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to understand how many of the violations you have sought to resolve.
I can, if you'd like, I'd give you more information in writing.
Can
I
you
know
do
I had
that?
already detailed it in writing for you as far as what the violations were and the dates they were issued and whether they were open or not. But I can certainly provide you more information as to the status of getting them closed and resolved.
Okay, and especially if there are fines that have to be paid. Okay? Any other questions?
They
Yes.
talked about sidewalk disrepair. Are you
I was
prepared to
unaware of
speak
that
about
until today's
sidewalk?
comments. I had not heard anything about that. As you've seen the record, there was nothing written in the record, including the letter to your board from Mr. Jaworski. So now that I've heard that, I will be inquiring about that from my client.
Good. Just let us know what the status is and how bad.
Absolutely.
I just want to note that the articles that we received, I think they're all from 2007 and 2008, so those were...
I have not seen those, but I would ask
I
the
think the 3
examiner,
articles
please
we got, they're all from 2007 and 2008. Okay, so it's not current condition. I don't know if there are any current articles regarding the state of the site. I know that you've provided us with some photographs that have shown that it's been backfilled and the fence has been actually repaired. Is that correct?
That is correct, but as I said, I'm not sure if there are additional issues that have arisen. I want to confirm that with the client.
All right, why don't you confirm that then for us? We can bring you back fairly soon. We can bring you back on June 10th. You can submit to us on May 27th.
Thank you.
Zoning calendar, decision items. Item number 1, calendar numbers 263-12BZ and 264-12A, 232 and 222 City Island Avenue, the Bronx, Sheldon Lobel.
Jordan Mose from Sheldon Lobel, on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, we're going to defer the reopening of this case to next week, which is May 20th.
So we'll have a hearing next week then?
We will.
Okay.
We're going to reopen, and that'll allow the community board also to weigh in.
Thank you.
Item number 2, calendar number 299-12BZ, 40 through 56 10th Avenue, Manhattan, Goldman Harris.
Ezra Moser from Goldman Harris for the applicant.
Motion to grant?
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 3, calendar number 25213BZ, 1221 East 22nd Street, Brooklyn, the law office of Frederick A. Becker.
Good morning, Larry J. Altman from the law office of Frederick A. Becker.
Motion to grant?
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Thank you.
Item number 4, calendar number 25313BZ, 66-31 Boot Street, Queens, Eric Palatnik.
Good morning, Eric Palatnik.
Motion to grant?
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Thank you.
Item number 5, calendar number 29713BZ, 308 Cooper Street, Brooklyn, Sheldon Lobel.
Jordan Mose from Sheldon Lobel.
Okay, we're going to defer the decision to July 15th.
Thank you.
Continued hearings. Item number 6, calendar number 34712BZ, 4231 Union Street, Queens, the law office of Vincent L. Petrero.
Good morning, Mitchell Ross for the applicant. We attended your review session yesterday, and we heard the board's comments. Regarding my statement of facts and findings, after today's hearing, I will expand on my discussion of the A finding, B findings and relate them to the scenarios that
Exactly.
we've
Thank you.
proposed. And with respect to the financial analysis, Mr. Freeman's office heard the comments and has actually responded to them. I can hand this up, or he's available to hand this up, or
Do you
answer
have
your
5
questions.
copies with you?
Yes, we have the copies,
Okay, is Mr. Freeman going to speak on the record?
if necessary.
I think it'd be helpful if he just walks us through these changes and the questions that Commissioner Otley Brown had. And you could, if you could also provide us with copies of that.
Yes.
Good morning, Jack Freeman. I'm here on behalf of the applicant for J.S. Freeman Associates. We had...
Do you have copy? Do you want us?
I have
to-
as many copies as...
All right, if you could just pass this out. It's related to what you're going to speak about,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so can you pass that out, please?
There's 6. Here's 2 more. And that's for your review, and we can, it'll also be entered into the record formally, so. We were pleased that all that time was spent in reviewing our material, and it seemed quite thoroughly. So on the basis of that, we listened to your comments, and if I missed something, we can always add it. But there was a question regarding the residential income in the DOB approved development. We noted that, and in the attached, we changed over the residential income, and the capital loss, in fact, increases from what was $8,410,000 to $13,625,000. Seller community facility income in the as-of-right condominium development was inadvertently omitted. That's been corrected, and with the addition of that income, $9,247,000 loss results. Previously, this was $13,361,000, so it's still in no way a feasible project. The hotel profit. The hotel profit that was shown for the proposed development was actually the correct amount. It was mislabeled as 2014. It was the 2015 amount. So to address that, we corrected that to show 2015, and then we also, on the lesser variance, we also adjusted it to be 2015 as it should have been. So as a result of that, the difference between the capitalized value on the proposed didn't change. It was just a typo. And the difference between the capitalized value and the cost of development on the lesser variance was previously shown as a deficit of $15,992,000, and it's now $12,457,000 because the income increases. There's a growth factor built into the analysis, so it's still not a feasible project. I think that touched on all of the questions that came up.
Commissioner?
It did. I would just want to have a chance to look at it,
Fine.
in time.
And
with the
again,
calculator, but I believe it addressed everything.
We're really amazed at the thorough review that was given, so it's appreciated. Could we submit a draft next time and get the review?
Okay, any other questions on the financials?
Thank you.
All right, were there any other questions for Mr. Ross? Are there speakers on this item? Any speakers on this item? All right, I just have two questions. One has to do with the FAA and PA sign-offs. So those were from 2008, I believe. Are they still active?
Yes. In our last submission, we included an email from
Oh,
those
yes.
organizations,
Okay.
which said that they're current.
Okay, they're current.
Yes.
And the second question has to do with the EAS that is now looking at comparing, I believe, the DOB alternative as your as of right or no build with the proposal. And I think the question was raised, I know, during examination with our examiners that you are looking at the height differential and the impacts of that. Has that been done?
Mr. Rothkrug says that he needs 1 week,
Okay.
and that
But
would
the
include
shadows.
also a shadow study that was requested.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, the shadows. Okay, so that's
Again, I
good.
apologize that that was not available. I think Mr. Rothkrug, I didn't make it clear, he might have thought this case was going to be continued, and so it wasn't ready. But it will be ready in 1 week.
Okay. So there are no speakers. Any other questions? Does the board have any concerns about closing the hearing today, Commissioner?
No, because they were minor errors.
Okay. All right, so we can close the hearing today. We'll leave.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll leave the record open for you to revise your, there are a few things. It's just revise the statement of facts and findings. Put in the revised EAS, and our staff will reach out to you by just also clearing up the drawings as well. I just want to make sure they're in proper shape.
Okay, I'll be ready for those comments.
Okay, so we can set a submission date for, you can set a submission date for June 3rd, and we can vote this on June 17th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Motion to close.
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Item number 7, 210-13BZ, 43-12 50th Street, Queens.
Jordan Mose from Shell Nobel on behalf of the applicant.
Mr. Most, you've asked for an adjournment. How much time do you need?
I had asked for June 3rd as a submission date
That's-
and a possible
that's good.
hearing date of June 17th.
That's good. June 3rd and June 17th.
Thank you.
Item number 8, calendar numbers 21613BZ, 21713A, 750 Barclay Avenue, Staten Island, Rampoula Associate Architects.
Good morning, Philip L. Rampoula. I attended the review session yesterday, and I spoke with staff this morning on the financial issues, and we will address the typos that were on the feasibility report. We will also bolster the A findings by addressing lots 7, 9, and 18 as the remainder of the lots, and talk about the narrowness of the lots, that they're through lots, and the cost per home because they're in the FEMA flood zone of what it would cost. And basically that in this neighborhood, these are one of the few vacant lots that are left to be developed.
And you can support that with some kind of survey or just, I don't know, a larger area, Sanborn or something, so we can see that, or?
I can. The Sanborn map
I know
itself,
this, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
the Sanborn, I mean, the 400-foot radius diagram itself shows that there are practically no other vacant parcels within this study area. And
Well,
I can
you make
submit
it slightly larger than the 400 feet? I know across the street is the parking lot, so that's vacant.
Correct.
So, but I'm just curious if there are others, and maybe some of them are more inland, but if you can just show us that.
What I thought was telling was the 1974 aerial photograph that I submitted to bolster my contention at the last hearing that when the last BSA hearing took place in 1978, those lots were used for parking. Why they were not reflected, 7 and 18 weren't reflected.
But it's not a legal document that you provided us, it's a photograph.
It's an aerial photograph.
So it's an aerial photograph doesn't mean that it's legal, so it may have been used for parking, it's just not clear that it was legal parking.
Oh, I see where you're going.
So it's historically used, but doesn't necessarily mean it's legal.
Okay.
But we understand that, we can take that into consideration, but it is just a parking lot, and so that doesn't necessarily stop it from being redeveloped. I think there are other factors that may restrict or impede its redevelopment, and those have to do with some of the
Understood.
things you talked about.
There was a comment made yesterday about limiting outdoor activities, which I have to respectfully disagree with. I would say no outdoor music after a certain amount of time, but this restaurant has always utilized outdoor dining because it is on the waterfront.
Right, and in fact, I understand. I mean, personally, I understand that you have a restaurant on the waterfront. Why wouldn't you want to have some outdoor dining, as I think, for patrons? I think Commissioner Montanez's concern is obviously more about making sure that even if you have that, it's not going to be an impact on the surrounding residential. Can you show us a plan where you would be providing outdoor tables and how many tables you'd provide? I think you want to make sure that it's going to be away from adjacent residential. And then we can talk about, the number of seats that you would be putting outdoors. We could talk about the hours of that, and then we can also talk about music or any applications. Yes,
And also probably how you light that area.
And
if
how
you're
you light
going to
that
be eating at night.
Okay. They do have, and they always have had, a lease with DCAS to utilize the bed of the street for the outdoor.
Okay.
So I will be submitting that also.
Okay, all right, you can. So it's in fact going to be towards the sea, obviously. It's not in the parking lot side, right? The outdoor
No, it's not
seating.
on the parking lot
So it's
side.
all in the front of the Esplanade area?
Correct.
Okay. I know that some of us were thinking about where those seats would be. So if you can show that to us.
I can.
All right? And, okay, any other questions? All right, we can bring you back fairly soon if you like, in 2 weeks.
Just one other thing, if I
Yes.
may. In speaking with the operator of the restaurant, prior to Sandy, he had a small basement area that he used for storage, and that one-story bungalow, part of it was also used for storage, for tables, for liquor, et cetera. Now that we're building to the flood hazard zone, he has no space for storage whatsoever. What we're proposing to do is utilize the attic for storage with one stair to go up to that attic. We've done a study, we've changed the ceiling height from 17 feet to 14 feet, which allows them to get some storage space up in the attic area. No new skylights or any way to get to the outside. And I'd like to submit that also.
Okay, you can show that to us as well. And if you could just provide a narrative about how much space are you trying to capture in the attic, do you know, in terms of square footage?
I don't know the square footage. I would imagine it's about 3/4 of the dining room, because over the kitchen and the bathrooms along the back, it's a flat roof. But over the dining room, it's a slope roof. So
All right.
once you get rid of the slope, we'll do an attic plan.
Right, and can you just also for us just tabulate what the square footage was, including the basement under the previous restaurant?
How about
in terms of the floor plan? So it's really the gross square feet, and then explain to us what your gross square footage is for this.
Can I also include the bungalow that's going to be demolished that was partially used for storage?
Well, was that legally used? Was that legally allowed?
This is like Chinatown. I have no idea what went on.
I don't know. I think I understand that, but you can show that. I wouldn't add it into the calculations as yet, but I think we'd like to look at the plans and see whether storage can be accommodated within the new structure as well.
Okay.
Okay?
I would need 3 weeks, please.
Okay, so that's June 3rd, and we can have the hearing on June 10th. Are there speakers on this item? Any speakers? Okay, so June 10th.
Thank you very much.
Item number 9, calendar number 23313BZ, 2413 Avenue R, Brooklyn. Law Officer Frederick A. Becker.
Good morning, Larry J. Altman from the Law Office of Frederick A. Becker. We attended executive session, heard your comments, and yes, you are correct that the building is going to have a lower perimeter wall height in the rear as opposed to the front, because the front is a pre-existing non-complying perimeter wall height. Although it is legal, an extension cannot be made legally without doing it at the correct height.
Okay, so in fact, you're not asking for a perimeter wall waiver,
Correct.
and any enlargement is actually going to be 21 feet.
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions? Any speakers on this item? You can close the hearing.
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
We'll set the decision date for June 10th.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, what I'd like to do is, the next case, I think we should do at the end of, we will do that at the end of the zoning calendar, since there are a lot of speakers on that item.
So new cases, item number 11, calendar number 22513BZ, 810 Kent Avenue, Brooklyn, Eric Palatnik.
One moment, I just want to put something up on the board. Hello, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. We attended your review session yesterday, and I apologize that the radius diagram that we just posted on the board is in black and white. We just passed up some color ones, but I think the radius diagram would be very helpful in the conversation. We also have some other handouts. I know the board raised some concerns yesterday with the application, raised a lot of concerns, and we have a team of people here that would like to speak to the board and express, well, why we believe it's a good variance. And we'd like to, I guess, address what you feel is important first, and then address the issues one by one, because there were quite a few that were raised yesterday.
All right, I think the board, I don't think any of the board members were really convinced that you had made your threshold finding.
So I guess we should start with uniqueness for the board.
You can start with the fact that you have a 5,000 square foot lot, and in fact, I'm looking at your radius diagram, I already see several 5,000 square foot lots that have manufacturing uses on it.
There are.
Okay, so I think the board, there were two issues. One was the board wasn't convinced that that site is not a site that one could actually develop manufacturing use. And the second is that the constraints that you identified, which further limit the ability to make a reasonable return, is not persuasive, including its adjacency to a church and that it's on a narrow street. And once you take those two distinguishing features outside the realm of your analysis, you'll find that this site is probably one of the better sites in the neighborhood, because you've looked at sites that are less than 5,000 square feet, and there's several that are much smaller. And so I don't know how you can make the uniqueness finding.
I had a feeling that was going to be your question, so I didn't sleep much last night.
Okay.
I did a lot of research instead. I'll pass these up. What I like about this board is I'm always forced to think zoning on Monday evenings, so a lot more than I always want to on Monday evenings. We spent last night doing a lot of research, as I alluded to, and the first issue was the issue of uniqueness, because I heard the board's comments yesterday. And I pulled up two applications that the board has acted on before, simply just to address the fact that the same findings that we've made here have been presented in other applications to the board before. And they found, this board has found, those applications in almost very similar situations, which we could vet out more. I realize I just passed you up resolutions. You haven't read them. You haven't familiarized yourself with them. But we'll start with, I guess, the first one is 63 and 65 Columbia Street, which are two zoning lots, just like our property. I attach at the back of it, you've got a color handout of the sites. You've got a color printout of the properties there. The resolution there speaks to the fact that the buildings had a vacate order on them. There's two lots next to each other, two 25 by 100s, on a corner, at the foot of the BQE in the Brooklyn waterfront, just across from where they're doing all the great restorations with the condos that are going through the roof. But across the street from that, at the exit on-ramp to the BQE, 5,000 square foot lot, corner access, next to residential, previous vacate for residential use on property, just like we had here with rubble foundations in the ground. And the cited uniqueness was the size of the property and its adjacency to residential uses. And that's replete if you go to page 2 of the board's resolution. The exact language that the board used.
I think I understand
Right.
that you may have found this, and we will review it, but I think we should spend our time you making your case
I
for this
am.
particular site.
If I may speak, I am.
And so instead, I think, I don't know if Commissioner Hinkson said this yesterday, but it's good to make your own case instead of showing us. all
No,
the
of
other
course it's good to make our own
You
case, but
can also rely on that, but why don't we start with this site and talk to us about how this site is uniquely constrained by the width of its street, by the size of its lot, and even if you put the size of lots aside, that it's adjacency to.
I'm getting to all that.
Okay.
I'm going to get to
And
it. I'm going to get to it, but I think that if I just may, because this forms the basis of the analysis that the Board of Standards and Appeals has used in cases before. That case, the board approved it for very similar reasons that we have here. The other case, which comes very close to this property, is at 110 Franklin. And 110 Franklin are two 25-foot zoning lots around the corner from this property. .110 Franklin is right here, two 25-footers, and they form to merge one property, just like here, a 50-footer, about 5,000 square feet, just like this property. They're actually in an M11 zoning district, which is that's one FAR. And again, the same analysis was given. If you look at the language again that the board used, again, they speak to the fact that it's vacant, which we're going to get to in a second, because I know the board asked us to do an analysis. If it's vacant, small and narrow, and burdened by adjacency to residential uses. In that case also, which...
I don't want to.
No, I'm
start
done speaking about those
arguing
two.
about those two cases
I'm
because
just-
I know them. So I think it would be helpful if you just focus on this site.
I'm coming to the site now.
Okay, good.
Okay. That application, 110 Franklin, did an analysis not only of the area, but also of new construction on that side, which is the south side of Park Avenue. And in the resolution, you'll see the language. There's only one new construction building on a 5,000 square foot lot in the last 20 years on that side. We've done new research last evening. On our side of Park Avenue, there's been no new construction within the past 20 years of any new manufacturing use within the district, within the study area. And coming to this block now, because we've just been talking about the uniqueness of this site, the real problem you have with this site is the fact that it's a narrow site. You can't get trucks onto it. And you can't get trucks onto the site in order to make deliveries. You're going to have the owner of the adjacent apparel company is here today to speak. He's the owner of this property right here. That's the picture that's coming up you're going to see with 4 loading bays on Park Avenue. What he's going to talk to, he's also got a loading bay in the back on Kent. He's got all of them. He's going to tell you he doesn't use the one on Kent because he can't get trucks into Kent. He's here today to testify, and he'll speak to you about that. The other picture, I believe, that we just passed up to you,
Which is the one on Kent?
the one on Kent is, can I see which one I gave you? Okay. That, yes, the warehouse with the loading berths. That's the one that's on the corner right here. That's adjacent to us. I know one of the comments yesterday at the review session was, other people are doing manufacturing, why can't you? What he's going to speak to you about is he's got all his loading bays fronting on Park, which is a wider avenue, much different than this site. He's also got a loading bay in the back. He's going to tell you how he doesn't utilize it. The print shop is also over here. There's a print shop, which I'll pass up a photo of. That's the corner manufacturing piece right there. I'm passing that up. They, too, have their loading berths facing onto Kent. That leaves the remainder of the block, and you have the radius diagram in front of you that shows you the uses on the block. This use right here is shown in blue on the radius diagram you have. That's a religious school. And what we're passing up to you now are photographs showing you the daily procession of young children that come out of that religious school on a daily basis.
I'm sorry, I
Yes.
can't tell where you're pointing to.
Right
Okay,
here. It's
across
the big
street?
blue one right across the street on the radius diagram that you have. That school, the bus, the pictures that are coming up are showing you the schools, showing you the buses, showing you the students loading and offloading. Also within that picture, you're going to see the church, which the Archbishop is here today to speak to you, because I know there were discussions about the church. And you'll see there they have a Head Start program, and you'll see a young mother coming out And what you're starting to see is that there's a lot of residential activity on this block. What you're also going to see in the next round of pictures that we're going to pass up to you whatever's not residential, the only active manufacturing that's being used is the schmutz that I just passed up to your board a second ago. And I use schmutz because it's the appropriate term. These properties here, 1, 2, 3, are the pictures I just passed up to you. Every single one of them has forklifts on the sidewalk, loading going on in the street, trucks double parked. And basically what can only be described as a nuisance. Nothing that's of any value to the community. And you'll see on every single building there's a for rent and a for sale sign. Yes.
What street are you talking about? On Kent?
We're on Kent. Again, we're the only...
So you're saying that it's a nuisance. So you're right, it's not appropriate for residential. I would agree with you.
These 3 properties.
Right, that's
Okay.
what I think that's also a concern. I think this block is quite different from some of the other examples that you've shown us, and that's why I don't like to hear, or when you make these, the board looks at this in totality. The kinds of manufacturing uses that you have here are different from what they are on Columbia Street. And the size of the lot and its surrounding conditions vary. So it's too simple for you to say, well, you did it there, you're going to do it here.
Well, that's not what I'm suggesting at all.
I know, but you're talking about the fact you've used words like schmutz and I don't know what not, and you've used all these words that are trying to describe a manufacturing area. A manufacturing neighborhood which is bustling, has a lot of activity on the street. That's why very often residential is not appropriate. To tell us that on Kent Avenue there are forklifts and there are cars all over the street only reinforces that perhaps this is not a good site for residential.
With due respect, Madam Chair, the use of the street and the pictures that are being photographed to you are in violation of many city laws. Every single city law you can possibly think of that's meant to maintain the health, safety, and welfare of citizens, both the Environmental Control Board, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Health, as well as not to mention the Forklift Act.
I understand,
So
but there is an issue that residential, from a zoning perspective,
So
and land use perspective, is generally incompatible with manufacturing.
There is a presumption of that, but here, the majority of the block, except for the 3 properties I'm pointing to, are all residentially occupied, with the exception of a 4-story former manufacturing facility of some sort here, which is a mammoth building, and a former telephone exchange building here that's marked as utility, which I'm sure you've passed by. It must be 120 years old. It's got big stone walls on it. It's a very noticeable building. The rest of the block, both as you extend this way towards the BQE, and you extend this way, is residential, primarily. There's a school here. You just approved Williamsburg Infant right here, another school. There's a vacant gas station here. And I'm not going to testify to you about that it's not a vibrant manufacturing area. I'm going to have all the people that live there tell you that. But all I'm trying to suggest to the board is if I was opening up Eric's Widget Company, this block is not the ideal location to open up the headquarters. Going to the site itself, let's go to the size of the site, because that's something we mentioned, the 50 feet. People are going to speak to you. The reason why I passed the trucks there is not just necessarily, although I could see it, you're seeing a vibrant activity, is to show you the trucks can't get into the properties. So they're loading on the streets.
So what is your, what
The
is
final
the
uniqueness,
finding?
the A finding that I'm coming to is A, the narrow size of the property. B, the most important, equally as important, is the fact that the building itself has a vacate order on it that was issued by the Department of Buildings. Now, I know the board said yesterday that demolition costs and things associated with demolition usually not included in your A finding, in the economic analysis. But that's when it's a voluntary demolition. When I'm coming to you with Eric's Widget Factory that I want to demolish to build Eric's condominiums. Here, I don't want to demolish Eric's Widget Factory. Here, the building itself is forced to be demolished by operation of law. There is no other alternative for the building. It's got to vacate, it's substantially damaged, and the engineer has written very clearly that the recommendation is to demolish the building. And I think if you've been out to the site, you could see that. So the question becomes then, can we include that cost? I suggest that we can include it because it's a forced destruction. And when we do that forced destruction and we compact, I know Commissioner Hinkson, had a question with respect to the cost. But when you add up all the costs, you're at approximately $122,000 in costs for this building to fill the property than to build a one-story warehouse. Not to mention that if you built the one-story warehouse the way the board is suggesting, I'm going to block all of the Archbishop's stained glass windows on his side. But that's another discussion. Whoever comes in there as of right.
That's as
But
of
that's,
right, and
that's
I-
as of right, and that's for the Archbishop to complain to the board about, not for me.
Well, they can,
But-
if you proceed with doing something that's as of right, that's not an issue for this board at all.
Correct.
And I think, and I.
But it goes to the
respect
character of the
Archbishop's
neighborhood.
Concerns, but to try and tell this board that the horrors of what can happen on this site is something that can happen on the site as of right is the responsibility of this board is very troubling to me.
It's what
And
it's.
I think it's a scare tactic, and I.
No, I'm not. I don't mean by scare tactic. What I'm trying to exemplify to the board, though, is that what we're proposing fits within the character of the neighborhood to a much larger degree than what's allowed as of right, and that's the C finding within the board, as you know. We have to demonstrate character. So I'm just trying to exemplify to the board that we do have a unique characteristic. We have subsurface conditions because we have to demolish, we have to fill and compact, we have to cart away. You've got a narrow property that's on a block, that's a narrow block, that shares similar characteristics with other analyses, and I'm trying to suggest that trucks cannot enter and exit the property, and that the proposed development as a residential use fits clearly within the character of the neighborhood, as exemplified not as a scare tactic. I know it's not the board's concern if we block a window, but for the community and the character of the community, it's a huge concern, especially for the church. And that's why they spent the day here coming down here to talk. We do have a lot of people, there are 5 people that came to speak to you today,
All right,
and we'd be happy to answer any questions the board has.
Yes, Commissioner Otley Brown.
Yeah, I just want to add my comments about the character. When you talk about the block north and the block south, to me, you're kind of like ignoring the most important block, which is the block that this property is located on. And if you look at the character of the block that this property is located on in terms of the amount of square footage of frontage for each use, then it really is skewed towards non-residential uses. It's only when you count up the number of lots that you may say that the predominant use is residential. But in terms of frontage, the majority of it is non-residential. So if I were going to put in a manufacturing use anywhere, I would more likely put it on this block.
Actually, I did rough numbers last night. There's only there's only 275 linear feet of frontage that's manufacturing on this block. The block.
Non-residential uses.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't catch the subtle. So what you suggest, if you can clarify.
Because a church is only used certain times of the day. It is not a situation where if you have manufacturing going on next to a church, you're disturbing the church. In all probability, the church's main activities of worship occur when the manufacturing use is closed.
Okay, if I can answer that point. You're in a heavily Orthodox community here, obviously. Sunday is a busy day in the Orthodox community. My BlackBerry lights up the second the sun sets. So the reason I'm telling you, the people that are going to speak here today, the manufacturing interests, are going to tell you that in the Orthodox world, Sunday is a business day. And those companies work. Not only that, what the Archbishop is going to tell you, and you're entitled to your opinion, and we're not disagreeing with you, but what he's going to tell you is he runs all week long. He runs in the morning, he runs in the afternoon, he runs in the evening, and he feels it will be a disruption.
Right, but to me, saying that a manufacturing use is not compatible with a residential use is a totally different situation as saying a manufacturing use is not compatible with a non.
Well, let's make it real. Let's talk, not hypothetical. Sunday morning, the widget company starts up production 8 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. The Archbishop has his congregants start to come. The trucks start to load on the street the way that we just looked at.
I just find this argument troubling because if these districts allow, from a public policy standpoint, these uses to be at the same location in the same district, I think to individualize that, oh, in this particular case it's like this because of some set of factors is just,
Well, it's specific to this property. The Archbishop is here.
it's not so specific to the fact that the site is small. It's
Well, it's a combination of,
it's specific to the fact that the street is busy with these kind of activities.
if I may, Archbishop, I think you'll do a better job of explaining them.
Good morning. My name is Archbishop Louis Elias Malazzo. I was part of the planning board in the Williamsburg section. I'm a member of the Council of Churches. I'm a chaplain for New York City Transit, and I have been involved in this parish since 1986. The building in question always was residential. There were 4 units there, and it was occupied until the fire 3 years ago. A, our church is open 24 hours a day. We're the only church in the city of New York that celebrates the liturgy according to Pius V of 1570. So we're a unique structure with a unique community of worshipers. We have been in this area. Matter of fact, if you look at the Reader's Digest, May edition, 1974, you will see that the priest of this parish, when the ship of fools was sent by the Nazis to North America so that they could be ransomed off, our parish priest raised money to be able to ransom 4,500 Jews on that ship. We have been a great community. I'm a member of the National Council of Christian and Jews. We want to live in peace. The point is that has been residential. The mayor wants more housing. They're going to provide more housing. We want to support this because of the fact that right now, any more commercial or manufacturing use in that area will disrupt the just safety of the children in both the shul and our Head Start program. We want you to look at the human side of this picture. We want you to look at the fact that people need housing, especially this community which has large families. And the block itself and the entire side where the church is only residential. And it has been there. This church has been here since 1900. We want peace and harmony in this community and safety for children. We know that you have guidelines, but we want you to open your heart and realize the necessity of housing for this community, A, and B, the safety of the children which are involved in here. Have a good day, and thank you for your concern.
Thank you.
The rabbi from the congregation across the street is also here to speak to the board. If I may just indulge him for a few minutes, if it's okay with
All
the
right,
board.
yes, okay. 3 minutes. You'll be given 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. My name is Mendel Fried. I'm a rabbi in the school of 799 Kent Avenue. It's across the street of 810 Kent Avenue. First, I want to support this guy who talked now, that I see from my window that the church is open 24 hours, 24/7. And yesterday I saw the children of his school going in the street with the teachers, and it is very, very dangerous if trucks gonna be there. Then I have a first cousin. He lives on this block, three houses down the road. He have now 13 children. It's a huge building full of children, and they're walking the street on and off, and it is very, very dangerous for this if it's gonna be commercial. Now, on my side, we are at school, we have 5 buses, loading and uploading the buses. This is very dangerous if it's gonna be trucks parking there, loading there. Sometimes people are very angry that we load the small children, and then they start to drive without permission. And this is we had already few stories that trucks start to go, and also they park there. We don't have place where the children should go into the school.
How long
I
have
would
you been, Rabbi, how long have you been at this location?
7 years.
7 years, okay.
I'm at the same room.
And you have a certificate of occupancy for school at this location?
What do you say?
You have a CO?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Have you ever approached DOT in terms of addressing the conflicts between the commercial uses and the school use?
I don't understand.
I'm sorry, have you tried speaking with the Department of Transportation in terms of finding a way to resolve some of the conflicts?
Yes, the board they are busy with this. They are talking to making residential.
Making
Residential area.
which board?
The board of our school.
Right. I'm just talking about the fact that you feel that there's unsafe conditions for the school, and whether you've worked with the Department of Transportation in trying to resolve some of the conflicts.
We talked already hundreds of times. There's no tool to talk, and we try to do our best. We're coming with the buses, 5 buses, and we're trying our best.
I understand that,
But it will be very hard for us to see another commercial building there.
well, first of all, the commercial building that can go there is fairly modest in size. It's not a very large site, so it's not as if you're going to get a very large manufacturing use on the property.
Even it's small, it will be very hard for us.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll take that into consideration.
Isn't this a C of O for a house of worship with accessory classrooms and not a school?
Yes, they are accessory. The same way every church and synagogue around the country has classes accessory to the main use.
Right, but it's not primarily a school.
No, it's
an
two uses. It's 2 uses going on. Just like the church has a pre-K program, just as if in any school.
Oh, because it says classrooms, prayer rooms, and multi-purpose rooms
Correct.
accessory.
To the congregation.
The house
It's-
of worship below, and you made it seem as if it's a children's day school.
It is.
Like an elementary
It is.
school.
It's a children's. It is a yeshiva school, a daycare, a pre-K school. Excuse me, Rabbi. You want to explain what the school program is? Explain who you educate.
Really, it's 2 schools. We have our school, Beno Spinker, Moses Ruler, 2 names. And then is there other school, Be Above. It's for small children. And this is it's two schools, one at the first ground and at the second ground.
I understand that. I mean, my concern is this, that, you know, schools are not really allowed in manufacturing districts without some kind of...
But the religious use is with an accessory
Right,
school.
but it's accessory school, but
Correct.
not really, it's not intended to be a full school.
Correct, and it's not a
which,
full school.
In fact, it conflicts with manufacturing uses, and that's the reason why the board actually has
But
a
it's
special
legal.
permit.
It's legal.
I understand that, but I think...
It's a legal use. I
understand-
guess the point,
The
rather than
point I think the board is making is that, at least for me, I'm not persuaded by this issue. Religious uses are, synagogues, churches are allowed within manufacturing districts, that's fine. School use is not. There's certain factors about this lot, but to argue to the board that conforming use, which has a right to be here, is a problem, is not a basis for an A finding.
But Madam
And
Chair, the resolutions
haven't
which
even
you'll
come to the
read,
C finding. So a lot of the testimony we're receiving is about really something else, about impact. But the threshold finding, I think some of this testimony is really not related to the A finding. Commissioner Otley Brown? I know you-
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with you that I don't think that you should use a use that in its current intensity of use is questionable at the site of the school to be used as justification for not allowing an as-of-right use across the street. Or as a justification for the fact that you don't think an as-of-right use would be feasible.
I'm dismayed at the fact that the board is looking at pictures right now of a permitted, right, but it's a permitted use.
We don't know that yet.
No,
We
I'm
really
talking about the
don't.
pictures that I'm passing up right now. Those are permitted uses, which are clearly not in compliance with local law. The school is. The school is.
The board is not an enforcement agency. You have those issues, you go to DOB if it's not complying with the law.
Not every 50
Right, but
by
I guess-
100-foot industrial use that doesn't have a loading zone spills out into the street in this fashion. And
The
so
smaller
we
ones
can't
do,
assume-
though.
but
The
we
smaller
can't
ones do.
assume that the future
The reason the
inhabitants of
smaller-
this lot are going to be lawbreakers.
But the reasons they are, if the
All
gentleman
right,
who
I
owns the
feel that
apparel,
we're having this argument here. Do you have anything else to
yes,
add on the A
we
finding?
do have some more information to add on this note, because what we're talking about
All right,
is,
fine. Why don't you, we'll take that information, you revise your papers, we look at it, but this is more like a difference of opinion. And I think...
Yes, and we're trying- yes.
I think if you want to convince us, you're going to have to give us not so much just testimony, but I think actual evidence. But I do believe that it's not a persuasive argument to say that, well, there's a particular use on the site that is affected by conforming uses, and therefore we should allow a variance. That's not the basis for a variance.
Chair, the board's resolutions clearly state to the size of a property, to the surrounding, the board agreed, I'll read language to the board, I mean, I think the board knows it. The board finds, I'm reading from the resolution from,
All right, why don't you put those arguments
if I could just,
in-
Madam Chair, you just
You
said,
can put them in writing. If you want to, if
But
you're
if-
going to question the board and our way of looking at things, and you have resolutions, please highlight that for us and put it in the record. I don't think you need to quote it right now. There are a lot of people here to speak on various items, and I don't want to rush you, but I just want you to focus on some of the issues that we raised yesterday, and we'll give you an opportunity to
here's my
revise
concern,
your
though.
analysis.
The board made statements yesterday at the review session that they saw no uniqueness at all. And the disconnect that I have, and that I'm looking for some clarification, is when previous resolutions cite to the adjacency of residential use, the history of residential use, and a 5,000 square foot is being narrow, and these incompatible adjacent uses, when I'm presenting these same conditions in this application, I'm finding a
understand.
disconnect on how
Right,
this
because I
property
think-
is different.
I think the board hasn't taken a position, and maybe I'm wrong, but that suddenly conforming uses that are adjacent to the site are the basis for a hardship. I think, I agree, sometimes residential use, and usually on both sides of the site, has been looked at. But to start saying, well, these are the conforming uses and we think these are incompatible, is it seems
Well,
to
that's
suggest,
one.
It just seems to suggest that any manufacturing district, you will find situations where you're going to have adjacent conforming uses that you're claiming is a hardship. I think that's very problematic, and I would. So I
And,
think
yes.
my beef with this argument is that somehow this idea that the church next door is creating a hardship is very problematic.
That's but
I would
one.
also say the 60-foot wide street, which is very common and mapped all over New York City, and many, I can't tell you, innumerable manufacturing zones have narrow streets that are 60 feet.
Fair enough. Fair
Are
enough.
just not, they're conditions that you find widespread, and that's how you're making your site distinctive. Yes, Commissioner.
I also want to add that we also feel that a 5,000 square foot lot in and of itself is not a reason to justify needing a variance. It also has to be looked at in terms of the surrounding neighborhood. What are the lot sizes there? Are there any lots that have more of a hardship than yours? So we want you to address that issue, not just say
I'm not
this is a
sure if you could
5,000 square foot
expand.
lot and it's narrow. Because maybe it's a 5,000 square foot lot that's surrounded by 25 foot wide lots that are even more of a hardship.
Right, but we're not necessarily studying those lots right now.
You
We're,
should be studying the lots that are surrounding this lot to show us that your 5,000 square foot lot is suffering a unique hardship. It's the lot that needs the playing field leveled for it, because without it, there's no way that it can make ends meet. It could be feasible.
Right.
And I didn't see that in the study that you showed. You talked about assemblages, and it was very unclear to me from the study what assemblages, what the total aggregate square footage of frontage was from the different assemblages you pointed out. It was unclear, and you didn't address the fact that this is an assemblage of 5,000 square feet, and I know a few of the other assemblages were 5,000 square feet, yet you
both that
totally-
we submitted to you were. Both 110 Franklin and 63 and 65 Columbia were both assemblages.
I don't remember which ones, but you distinguished them from you, but I'm not even sure that you should.
I'm talking about the cases I understand. I'm talking about the case we just passed up.
I'm talking about the uniqueness study that you
Right,
sent to
Mr.
us, the
Rasmussen from
urban
Urban Cartographic.
Yeah.
I understand. We'll take a look at it. Also, we have another speaker, unless the,
Yes,
No,
Commissioner Henson.
I'm just going to give you a little bit pushback on your idea that because of some sort of government interference, that you are now qualify for, a hardship in some way. And I think that, this building was compromised because of a fire, and it's the city's responsibility, and it's basically an ministerial responsibility to make sure that the site is safe. So I would not necessarily hang my hat on the fact that the government has issued you a vacate order and an order to demolish the building. So, I think that would come if the government, specifically was targeting you in some way and your building was just fine before the government decided to tell you to take it down. So I would not include that as a hardship because you didn't intend to do it. You had a fire that presumably was, you know, who knows whose fault that was. So I took exception to that, and you might want to rethink that. Also, in your study, could you just go over to make sure that you're correct in some of your COs? I think in some of the examples that you give, you've said certain properties are mixed use and they're not really, they're really solely residential. So I think you need to go back over that and just for clarity and make sure that you've got the right pictures with the right descriptions.
We'll check those.
I just want to say one other issue about the A finding, which is why I'm having such a problem with this case, is that what you've shown is that in the surrounding area, there are a lot of sites that are the same size as your site and less, or less. Right? Just let me just complete, right? It's in fact, if it's 331 properties, 183 are less than 5,000 square
Correct.
feet. Then you've done another screening, which is fine, which is you've taken out all the ones that are in residential use from that equation. But you still have about 81 sites in your study area. I think you should look at those 81 sites, and what it seemed to me that there were a lot. So in fact, your site is not unique in its size and shape. That's what I gathered. And
But
I think
Madam Chair,
Commissioner-
that directly-
Just gonna
Yeah, go on,
say one
yes.
thing, and I think Commissioner Audley Brown's comment was the fact that, well, and yes, and there's sites that are smaller that are in fact even more, suffer even a greater hardship because they're smaller sites. I think that analysis should be done again. I think that you should look at really what you believe are the distinguishing features. I do not think the location of the church can be considered really a basis for distinguishing this site from others, and I don't think the narrow street should be either. So there are a lot of manufacturing uses that are narrow streets.
Yes, and the 110 Franklin was everything that you just said. We're talking about the same study area as 110 Franklin, the same size street.
Franklin, if you go to Franklin, it's a very different street.
Franklin, with all due, same size street. It's got the same volume of
No, it's the
residential.
context of that street is very different.
How so? Because when I go up and down, we drive up and down Kent in both directions. We'll get to that. I'll give you more information on that. We do have one more speaker, two more
Okay.
speakers.
All right, we'll take that, and then we'll ask other speakers if there are any other speakers.
My name is Aaron Friedman. I'm a neighbor right next door to the property that's being discussed over here. We have a loading dock right next door over there that we do not utilize, being that trailers cannot make it in and out of that narrow block. There's also a lot of children over there right across the street, directly across the street from our loading dock, which makes it very dangerous for us to bring in trucks on that side. So all of our loading is really done on the Park Avenue side between Taffy and Kent. That's basically what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker, you have another speaker from your team?
One more person if you'd like to speak.
My name is Chaim Klein, and I'm a licensed real estate broker in the neighborhood, and I'm doing a lot of rentals and commercial in this neighborhood, and specific in the streets. I got approached by Mr. Abram Nyman if we could rent out this building as a commercial tenants. As I see it, is two things. Number one, like they said, it's a very narrow street, and there's no place for trucks to unload and upload on this street. I just spoke yesterday with one of my friends. I told him I'm coming here for a hearing, and he told me that it was in back of a truck yesterday for a while because it was uploading stuff and they couldn't move anywhere. Number two, like they said, there's a couple of schools and church, and I don't think that any commercial tenant would want to rent out a building at this street. I know a lot of commercial tenants in this street, they're having signs for a long time. They want to go for rent, but nobody's interested in renting any commercial on the street. So I don't see that anyone was looking to rent Mr. Abram Nyman's building. So I highly recommend it should be residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others? Yes.
No, there's nobody else from our organization.
Are there speakers on this item? Any speakers? All right, any other questions for Mr. Platnick? I have a concern that I just want to express over here, that after hearing all this testimony about the activities on this block, I think that it suggests that residential isn't an appropriate use. It goes both ways. You're talking about all this activity, all the double parking, all the material that's out on the street. Why would you think that this is a site that's appropriate for residential?
The activity that you're talking about is the activity that's centered over here, away from our site, and it's on the street, and it's illegal. There's residential, as we've said, and we'll give you here, 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 and there. There's a predominant amount of residential, probably something, if you took a 3-block radius, probably 75% residential.
All right, these numbers are not making sense to me, the 75%.
We'll give you a map,
and
yeah.
and I would completely agree with Commissioner Otley Brown that the way you're sort of describing things is not what it looks like
We'll
over
give
here.
you a clearer map that shows
What
you.
you should show us is actually square footage of these buildings, not just the frontage. I think you tell us about the amount of square footage that you have for non-residential uses versus residential use. So conforming uses versus non-conforming use.
And I understand what the board is saying about the hardship and the uniqueness, and I think that there are some other things that we're going to do some research on, and I think we may be able to come up. One issue that has been raised, and I'm sure the board is aware that there's been a change in your examiner over the course of the past year, and one document from Department of Environmental Protection just recently made it to our attention, and that is requiring testing due to some past uses before the residential on the property. And that's, I believe your examiner has that document in your board's files. We're going to dig on that document a little bit further and see perhaps we can find a little more in the way of some conditions on the property that the board may find convincing. So we'd like, if we could have until August 5th to submit. That would give us ample time to do our testing.
Because you're going to look to see if the site is contaminated, is that the
Well,
reason?
now that I'm hearing the board's.
Because you're asking for,
We didn't want to. There's an existing building on the property, and when DEP issued the letter, when we read the letter, what the testing they're requiring is a little bit difficult to attend to because of the existing building. When I thought the case was a strong case, we did start this 2 years ago with a lot of work into it, and we mimicked it on other applications the board has approved in the past. But now that I'm seeing that the board is not agreeing with me, it might be in our best interest to see if we can get creative to try to actually get into the ground to address the DEP comments that are on record.
all right, August 5th?
If we could submit August 5th, that'd be great. And if we could have the hearing, I don't know if the board has hearings on August 19th.
Yes, 19th.
Is that acceptable? Thank you. And we apologize for disagreeing. We just, we have a different opinion than the board on this one. Thank you.
Item number 12, calendar number 28413BZ, 168-42 Jamaica Avenue, Queens, Warshaw, Bernstein.
Good afternoon, Josh Ryan Smith of Warshaw Bernstein for the applicant. This is an application for a 7336 PCE special permit to permit the operation of a fitness center within a building that is being constructed at the premises. One of the board's comments at yesterday's review session would be the submission of the DOB approved plans. I've been informed that I'll have a digital copy of the plans this afternoon, and I can have them submitted to the board right away.
Okay, and it has the zoning calculation. We just want to understand.
Absolutely. And then I believe the other concern that was raised was the fact that this is a through zoning lot with frontage both on Jamaica Avenue as well as 92nd Road to the south. The building is going to be built entirely on the C24 portion of the zoning lot. The rear portion that fronts 92nd Road is going to be planted with grass, and that is going to be fenced off from the street. So we will not allow access from 92nd Road to the building at all. It will remain undeveloped, and there will not be patrons that are frequenting any of the commercial establishments, including the fitness center, who will be able to access the property from 92nd Road. So the only entrances will be on Jamaica Avenue.
Does that condition that you just described, does that appear on your plans?
Yes.
It does?
Mhm.
That it's going to be planted and...
No, that isn't, but it does show that it's set back.
It does show
Right.
it's set back, and I do believe, maybe not on the site plan, but I know I saw grass planting. If the board would like, I can have the project architect add the proposed fencing.
I think that would make it clear.
Right, that would. But I think, again, you still are surrounded by residential uses, right? Even
Yeah.
on, what happens on Jamaica Avenue? Is it more commercial or?
Oh, I mean, this
Jamaica,
is
yeah.
right in the heart of downtown Jamaica. There's commercial across the street, next door.
I'm just looking at your page.
Sure.
So the houses on 92nd Road, though, would just be abutting this grassy area?
That is correct.
And that grassy area is totally enclosed, so that, is it anticipated that people using the PCE are also going to be on this grassy area at any time, or?
No, the PCE is entirely enclosed within the building.
So no use of the
No, it wouldn't be permitted. It's obviously a residential zone, commercial use isn't permitted even if it's accessory, but the fitness center, Planet Fitness, has all of their facilities enclosed. They do not have personal training programs that would require the use of any outdoor space.
Okay, I think that was really our concern about the 24/7 operation of this, if you can just show that in your drawings. This is a new building that's being constructed.
Correct.
and
It is
actually on-
currently under construction.
Right, it's currently under construction. At one point, it's set back from the lot line, isn't that correct, from one side?
From the front lot line,
Side lot line, right?
side lot. At one point, I believe at the opposite end,
Trying to think which
let me pull the plans back out.
Right, where the PCE is, it's set back from the lot line,
That
right?
is
That
correct.
portion of the site.
Yes,
But that's used as a loading berth.
I believe so.
That little area is used as a look.
That was my question about
Okay.
actually.
Right, you want to ask that question?
So
Sorry.
just playing devil's advocate here, but how does one access that loading berth, and how do you make deliveries?
There's a curb cut on Jamaica Avenue.
But I mean, how do you make deliveries once I now have loaded into this pretty narrow lane, and I've parked my truck, I get out, and now I'm going to unload. How do I take what I'm unloading to either the PCE or the other commercial space?
Well, the PCE doesn't have any loading requirement. No goods are delivered. I don't know. I'm not the building's architect. I can investigate this and pertain, but I would like to stress this is as of right and has been approved by the
No,
Department of
I
Buildings. This
understand that.
application
It
is
just doesn't
for,
appear that you'd be able to actually do what they're saying that you're going to do without necessarily going around the back or alternately around the front. But if you could just find out whether or not the rear is going to be utilized for any delivery.
I will absolutely do so, but once again, this use, our use does not trigger any loading. If the board's concern is about 24/7 operation, we don't have a loading requirement. We're not using the rear of the property. Anything else is permitted in an as-of-right development.
Right, I think hopefully the buildings department drawings will
Be
show us,
clearer.
yes, show us
Certainly.
the operation of that. Okay, my point was only that you have a buffer of that. In fact, your building doesn't share any of the lot line because the portion where the PC is going to be located is actually set back from the property line.
That is correct.
Okay,
And there is no windows on that side lot line.
and then there's windows, okay. All right. how much time do you need? Did you give
I could submit
May
within.
27th?
Yeah,
We
certainly.
can bring you back on June 10th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Has the community board weighed in on this as yet?
They have, they voted, I believe it was unanimous approval.
Okay.
I will track down the
Okay.
community board
I may
resolution.
have it, but yes.
I'll submit it as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there speakers on this item? Oh.
Item number 13, calendar number 31613BZ, 210 Geralman Street, Brooklyn, Slater and Beckman.
Good morning, Stephanie Marazzi for the applicant Yoga Works. This is an application for a special permit for a physical culture establishment in a portion of the cellar and a portion of the ground floor at the municipal building at 210 Geralman Street in downtown Brooklyn. I attended a review session yesterday, and I understand the board had a question about whether sprinklers would be provided at the premises. I checked with the architect and with Yoga Works, and in fact, they are installing, or they are upgrading and expanding the existing sprinkler system. So I had them amend the plans to provide a note specifying that that was being done.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Right, I think we've got your landmarks approvals as well. So any speakers? Speakers, we can close the hearing.
Thank you.
Are you here to speak on that this item? No. Okay. All right, so we can close the hearing.
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins. Aye. Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Ollie Brown.
Aye. We'll decide this on June 10th.
Thank you.
Item number 14, calendar number 614BZ, 1648 Madison Place, Brooklyn, the law office of Lyra J. Altman.
Good morning, Lyra J. Altman from the law office of Lyra J. Altman. And I'm here representing the owners of 1648 Madison Place. I understand there was a question yesterday at executive session regarding the breakdown of the new square footage. I do have that information for you. I know that Commissioner Montanez, who was not here today, had inquired if all of the space was going to be under the sloping roof. It is not actually required to be under 73,621. What 73,621 says is they're permitted a 10% increase. The 10% increase on the base floor area is regular floor area. If you choose to do a 10% increase on the area under a sloping roof, that increase must also be under the sloping roof. In this specific case, the as-of-right floor area is 1,550 base and 310 under a sloping roof. That is the as-of-right. We are requesting 277 under a sloping roof, which is less than permitted. And we are requesting for the enlargement 276 square feet, 135 of which will be as of right, because this building is currently underbuilt, and 141 of which will be subject to the special permit.
All right, but overall, I think I understood what you said, but overall, you have, I think it's 0.64 FAR?
Correct.
Out of that, 0.1 FAR has to be under the sloping roof because the 0.5 to 0.6 is, 0.1 FAR is under the sloping roof.
The way it's broken down is the 0.5 FAR is the base, and then the 0.1 can be under a sloping roof. Well, 0.1, if you're going to use it, must be under a sloping roof.
Right.
The 0.1 would be 310 square feet.
That's not 0.1, though.
It's 20% of it. 0.1 of the
Why is this being so complicated? You just have to show that 0.1%, 0.1 FAR is under a sloping roof.
And it is.
Okay.
We have provided that in our statement as well. But we will provide you more. Actually, I think we broke down.
I looked at it.
Oh, you know what? No, we broke down how much was going to be by special permit and how much was as of right. We didn't break down how much
No,
was
you
under the sloping
didn't.
roof.
And I'm looking at the site is, how big is the site?
Exact numbers.
It's about 3,100 square feet?
believe
So,
so.
okay, so 310, that's 0.1, right? So
That is
that's
correct.
okay. You proved it to me, fine. So it's 310 square feet is below,
No, actually, only 277 is what's being proposed. We're permitted 310.
not,
only
you're not
using,
permitted, you have to, you can't swap it.
No, we're not swapping it.
Okay.
We are permitted 310 under a
Okay.
sloping roof. We are providing 277 under a sloping roof.
Okay,
Less than is permitted as of right.
got it.
For the base floor area, we're
Okay,
permitted
that's why you're not-
1,550.
Understood. So you're not going to 0.66 FA, you're going to
That is correct.
0.64.
That is correct. We are not utilizing all of the square footage that we could potentially be utilizing under this application.
Okay, I understood it.
I know typically I do
Commissioners,
come with applications that are maximizing the possible
Can you
square footage.
provide us with a statement just very clearly saying that, showing what you're doing?
Absolutely. I do need to revise the statement as well because there was a typo in the last statement. The architect had informed me that our request was for 108 square feet. That was based on 310 square feet being under the sloping roof. He just discovered yesterday when he reran these calculations for me that there were, as I said, only 277 under the sloping roof. So our request is for 141 square feet, which is a 9% increase, still below the 10% we're permitted to request. I will spell all of this out in the revised statement.
All right, any other questions? Any speakers on this item? All right, I think we can close the hearing. We'll leave the record open and submit to us on June 3rd. We can vote this out on June 17th.
June
17th.
Would it be possible to have it on June 10th with the prior application I have on?
Okay, then you can submit to us on May 27th. We can vote this out on June 10th.
Thank you very much.
Motion to close.
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins. Aye. Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you again.
Item number 15, calendar number 20-14BZ, 312 East 23rd Street, Manhattan. Sandy Anangasu.
Sandy Anagnostu, representing the applicant.
Yes, any questions? Any questions? All right. Any speakers on this item? No speakers? We can close the hearing.
Chair Srinivasan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins. Aye. Commissioner Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye. We'll decide this on June 10th.
Respectfully, I'd like to request, if possible, an earlier date for decision.
Sorry, June 10th.
Okay, thank you.
We're just going to take a 2-minute. We're just going to take a 2-minute break before we call the last item.
Taking a 2-minute break, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Recalling item number 10, 15513BZ, 1782-1784 East 28th Street, Brooklyn, the law office of Frederick County.
Good morning, Larry J. Altman from the law office of Frederick A. Becker. Here on behalf of the congregation, I think you see we have a number of people here with us today. And we did attend your executive session and heard your comments. It appears as though the majority of those are comments for the architect. I've spoken with him, and he is looking into the second floor to see if there's a way to make this a little more efficient and to see if there is a way to flip the use. I believe it was Commissioner Montanez that requested if we look into whether the rabbi's residence could be flipped to the other side. He's looking into it. He was unable to make all these analyses before today, but we certainly will be getting back to your board with all of that information. I believe the other question that was of most importance was whether we are legalizing just the mikveh or the mikveh in the synagogue. At the time this application was filed, I don't think it was perfectly clear to all of us. I can now attest to you that we are going to be legalizing the entire structure, including the synagogue. I will be amending my documents accordingly so that it will reflect that everything is being legalized, because as your board stated yesterday, the side yards would be an issue for the synagogue. It's not the use per se, it's the yards on the existing building that are at issue.
Okay, so you'll be revising your...
I will be revising the application. At the same time, we will be dealing with whatever the architect is able to do, which, as I said, since yesterday morning, he hasn't been able to run a full analysis to see whether he can do any of what the board requested. But he is looking into it for you.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown, I know you had a question about the lesser variance.
Right. Is it possible that you can put the amount of women that are accommodated in the lesser variance on the plans so that this way it's easy to look at one and the other and see what would be lost?
Absolutely. Glad to.
How many people can you accommodate in, how many women can you accommodate on the second floor in lesser variance?
In the lesser variance, I would have to speak to the architect about that. I had been told that the question was regarding the number of people in the building on the proposed, I didn't catch from the executive session that it was lesser variance, and I apologize for that.
Right, there was a separate question, I think, which is what Commissioner Hinkson was asking. But so one question is that you've shown us the lesser variance where you've provided a 30-foot rear yard at the back, correct?
We actually did not provide a 30-foot rear yard. We put one story in the rear, 23 feet in height, which is permitted obstruction under 2344.
Right, and then what happens on the floor above that?
The floor above it, it does set into 30
It sets
feet, yes.
back 30 feet.
That is correct. On the floor above, it does.
Okay, that's what I meant. So I think it'd be helpful for you to exactly give us
We
what
can
the
add the occupancy numbers to the lesser variance scenario, absolutely.
And Commissioner Hinkson?
Yeah, and my question was, on what basis did the architect calculate the occupancy load? It wasn't clear to me whether he was including seating, or was this, sort of freestanding, because it.
Understood. I have that
totally
question.
different number depending on how.
I have a question into his office on that as well, and they're looking into, the person who calculated those numbers has actually left his office, so he's going to be providing me how they made those calculations. But I did hear that.
Okay. All right, so we'll wait to see what the architect is going to come back with. We're really encouraging you. In fact, we believe that you can make your program work by providing a rear yard at the back.
As I said, we're not saying no to your board by
Right.
any means. We are certainly looking into it and seeing if it is possible, if we can make it work to satisfy your board and to meet the programmatic needs of this congregation.
Okay.
But until we do a full analysis of the building, there's no way for us to tell you whether it is possible.
All right. I just think that, they're the kind of space that you have provided right now sort of meanders. The proposal actually has an occupancy for the second floor, which is greater than, I think, what you noted was the number of women who come. And there's a buffer. Probably, maybe you think that the congregation may grow, but at least as stated, the programmatic needs, I think it accommodates more people than necessary. You provided an office space which is fairly large, which is right at the rear, and encroaches into that 30 feet, which has never been explained in terms of the need for that space. So all these things considered, I think we're not expecting you to come back with no change. We're
Understood.
expecting a change.
We certainly will be looking into see what we can do to satisfy your board.
All right. I know there are a number of people here to speak on this item.
There are, and if your board would indulge me for just a moment, I know that we have a number of people in favor, and a number of them will be getting up and speaking, but in lieu of having every single individual that is here in favor speak, would it be possible to have them raise their hands?
Yes.
You can get an indication without each one of them taking 3 minutes of your day.
That's fine. That'd be great.
Everybody who is in favor, please raise your hand. Show the board your support today.
Okay.
From what I understand, there are approximately 60 people here. That's the estimate that I've been given.
Okay.
I think it's important for your board to see that.
All right. So we'll take testimony from members of the public, people who support and who may oppose the project. Each person will be given 3 minutes.
If it's possible, we'd like to have the rabbi speak first.
Okay, that seems fine.
My name is Rabbi Moshe Shmuel Rottenberg. I am the Rabbi of Congregation Kosovo Zichron Chaim Shloime. My father, Rabbi Tuvi Rottenberg, of blessed memory, founded this synagogue 30 years ago. There was barely a quorum at our first service. Over time, the community grew, along with the need for more space. My father, who was ill for many years and who passed away 2 years ago, did his best to meet the needs of the growing Orthodox population. While our intentions were always to adhere to all relevant rules and regulations, perhaps due to unfamiliarity with zoning ordinances and under pressure to make room for newly arrived congregants, not all requirements were always met. My father began the process of rectifying these past oversights and omissions. Unfortunately, he did not get to complete the task. We are here today to complete that process and assure the members of the community desirous of using our facility a safe and comfortable place to pray that meets all their needs. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker. Yes, speakers on this item. Anyone would like to come up and speak? Yes, come forward. You can get 3 minutes.
Madam Chairman, and the esteemed members of the board. My name is Israel Shiner. Over the last 28 years, my family and I have been members of a congregation based Moshe Shmuel, which I will now refer to as BMS in short. We witnessed our congregation grow as the neighborhood around it grew. and to this day, our congregation still continues to grow. BMS is responsible for many significant projects over the years, and Rabbi Rattenberg never sits idle, always searching for additional improvements to better BMS and benefit our community at large. Just to name a few, at the behest of Rabbi Rattenberg, BMS distributes thousands of dollars to families in need. BMS was at the forefront of providing job search and placement for the unemployed as a result of the economic meltdown. In addition, BMS provides an anchor for our children and young adults by including them and inducing them to attend classes offered by BMS, keeping them off of the streets. BMS also offers free classes for adults every morning and evening, and is open all day to the benefit of anyone in our community to avail themselves of our and their vast library. Rabbi Rattenberg instills in all of us moralities and values in his weekly speeches. We at BMS are fortunate to have a rabbi who is sought after for his guidance and counsel in religious and practical matters. He is also available to the entire community, both in times of happiness and in sorrow. All are free to seek his advice and counsel day and night. Many of my generation's children, who are now married with children of their own, are today a core component of our thriving community, responsible, productive, and stable citizens. Under the leadership of Rabbi Rattenberg, BMS has become a hallmark institution in our community. It has developed and blossomed into a synagogue providing vital community service to us all. It holds the community together and draws members and non-members alike, welcoming Jews from all cultures. However, many a time,
I'm sorry, your
congregants...
time is up.
Just let me finish, I have 30 seconds. Unable to gain
Please
access
conclude quickly.
or compelled to leave BMS due to its capacity limits and constraints of our building. In summation, based solely on the facts, I implore this board to grant BMS its requested variance necessary as proposed in its application, enabling it to continue to grow, thus providing our community with additional services. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker. Please come forward.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Jacob Shiner. I'm an attorney, and I currently reside on Long Island. I grew up in the community in Brooklyn, and I was part of this congregation. I do come back many times to this congregation as it is still home. I just wanted to share a story, just a personal story with my experience based on the shul, where it has been and where it's going. I live in Long Island for approximately 5 months now. I got married 5 months ago. And prior to the marriage ceremony, we have the weekend before, the Saturday before, we have a ceremony in the synagogue. And being that my family, on both of my parents' side, we have an extended family, my wife's family, we considered having to have the affair at a different location due to the limits, to the spatial limits in the synagogue. But being that the rabbi, the congregants, and the location itself was really special to me because I was able to go there at all times. I was able to seek the rabbi's advice. I had a place. I've dealt during law school. I became a certified mediator, and I dealt with PINS cases, persons in need of supervision. And I was able to see how having a location for the youth in our community today is an important core aspect to be able to raise children, to become young adults, and to be able to become successful members in society. So I just want to conclude with saying that this congregation is more than just a synagogue. it's more than just a place and a location. It's an extended family, and it's an asset to the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker? Are there any more speakers on this item? Yes. Please come forward. Yes, please.
Hi.
Hi. Do you want to submit something?
I want to submit something. I'm sorry, there's only one set of pictures.
Okay.
For you to look at to pass around. My name is Joe Melfi. I'm here on behalf of my mother, Cleonice Melfi, who lives and has lived in the two-family residential home that shares a wall with the congregation. And my mother and my father have lived there. My father is since deceased in that home for 40 years, so 10 years prior to the congregation coming to the community. As you look, I'd like you to take a look at the pictures, if you may, and understand the significance that these homes are attached by one wall. And I'm not here to debate the significance of the congregation in the community and what a wonderful job they've done. Just to talk specifically about the fact that maybe they need to consider that they've grown to a point and become so successful in the community that they've outgrown the facility that they're in. Because the plan that they're proposing in doubling the size of what is, in my understanding, already an illegally joined two homes, where if you see the driveway on the opposite side of my mother's home in those pictures, which has been illegally closed, and there's been a number of violations that haven't been attended to, and I know this may be moot, because from what I understand from their attorney, she's now going, this isn't just for the mikvah, it's going to resubmit all of the violations and the fines that are outstanding over the past 30 years. My family has been very tolerant of this. We understand their need in the community, and it's wonderful. But at the same time, my mother has a need. She's 86 years old. She worked as a seamstress, and my father is a longshoreman. And they bought this one home to bring up a family of 5 children, 14 grandchildren, and 12 great-grandchildren. She's 86 years old. She's now handicapped. And there's no way that this board needs to consider, if they allow this kind of construction to build double the size of a residential building, what the effect will be on my mother in her golden years, in the final years of her life that she should be able to enjoy. And that's what I'm here to say today. I appreciate your consideration, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker?
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Sotaro. I live at 1781 East 27th Street, directly behind this project. If this project goes through, my property, the whole back part of my property, faces the rear of this project. At the community board, I asked the lawyer one question. Will I be facing a brick wall if this project is approved? And the answer was yes. I get up in the morning, I get sunlight. Right now I look out at the illegal driveway. My kitchen window goes straight out to 28th Street, looking over this driveway that has a roof, 2 air conditioners on it. Okay. The whole idea is this is a quality of life issue. I like to sit in my backyard. I like to get up in the morning. I grow a garden. I'm losing my sunlight. And it upsets me to know, as you could see, that we have to have regard for our neighbors. We can't just build and say, oh, fortunately enough for the majority of the people here, it's not going to affect them. But it will affect me. The whole rear of my property will be a brick wall. We have trees back there now. Want trees on my property? Beautiful. In the fall, it's gorgeous to see it turn. I just can't see the idea of proving this as it was opposed to us. Well, it's there now. I can't see looking at a handball court in my backyard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker?
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Aloisio, and I've been a resident of 1779 East 28th Street for almost 30 years, very close to the two addresses that we're talking about right now. The construction issues did not start until the early 1990s, and since then, these two addresses have upwards of $65,000 in fines that have yet to be paid and have accumulated 21 complaints, 17 DOB violations, 38 ECB DOB violations, all which have increased in number since the meeting at the community board last year regarding this very matter, some of which are still open and active to the day. This plan proposes special consideration due to the fact that these constructions are a house of worship. However, please take into consideration what I'm about to say before you make your decision. 8 of the active violations date all the way back to 1995 and pertain to construction and zoning, one in particular stating that the work was done without a permit in the first place. Some of the violations have now been elevated to aggravated level 2 because of continuous failure to comply. 1784 has no certificate of occupancy. Neither residents have public assembly certificates, which are necessary for groups of 75 or more to gather for religious or educational purposes. The Community Facility Zoning Text Amendment requires 1 parking space per 10 people. With at least 200 families in the congregation, there's no feasible way to accommodate that much parking without disrupting this neighborhood, as you can see by the pictures where parking in front of the hydrant is a daily occurrence. 1782 fails to comply with commissioner's orders. Occupancy is contrary to that allowed by records. The proposal requests a bulk variance claiming a non-self-created hardship, but they have in fact created their own hardship by existing against violation and utilizing the space inappropriately up until this day. Though some fines have been paid, no measures have been taken to correct the reasons behind the violations in the first place or to pay all of the fines that are in place. The DOB states that the essential character of the neighborhood must not be altered or substantially impaired, and public welfare must not be detrimentally affected to grant a variance. The proposal will usually alter the character of the neighborhood as well as affect the safety of the community at large. The exact rules put into place to establish, protect, and preserve the safety and well-being of everyone in the community, both those that live around it and come to the synagogue, are the exact rules that have been and continue to be blatantly disregarded. This temporary structure has been deemed illegal since its construction and received violation after violation. How can a variance be approved in good conscience for a structure that has circumvented the law at almost every turn and never attempted to make any rectifications over the past 19 years? Additionally, the proposed plan does not comply with 8 of the very provisions put in place to maintain the integrity and safety of the community and the people in it. How many times and for how long will the laws be disregarded and the community, immediate residents, and the congregation alike be endangered before this is considered enough? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers? Yes, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Peter Trenka. I live at 1778 East 28th Street. On the first floor, my wife and my 2 small children, 23 months and 1 week old. I'm a New York City fireman, and the bulk of what I want to talk about is safety. It is shameful that this congregation would ask for special consideration and dispensation in the form of a variance for years of disrespect and disregard to the residents of the block and for city agencies such as the Buildings Department and the FDNY. City agencies we charge with our safety. I recently had the opportunity to enter the basement of 1782 due to a water condition that was coming into our property at 1778, and I observed something that absolutely turned my stomach. The interior stair of the basement is completely boarded over, and the only access to the basement is now through the backyard, an illegal alteration which no permits were filed for, and that's the only way in or out of the basement. As a fireman, you have to imagine a fireman performing his duties in a fire condition and entering that basement through the rear access and having no way of knowing his secondary egress in the front of the building is closed like a coffin over his head. The stairs sealed up, leading directly to floorboards. Now, building code is defined as a set of rules that specify a minimum acceptable level of safety for construction. Now, there's a temporary illegal structure composed of steel I-beams, brick, and cinder block that was built in the alley between the 2 properties 19 years ago in 95 that illegally adjoins the 2 first floors of 1782 and 1784. creating one open floor plan between the two buildings. Sealing the alley and incorporating the structure is a violation of 24-35, a minimum required side yard, and is obstruction of the fire department to perform its duties. It is my contention that the existing structure is in such gross violation of building code, safety, public safety, and the well-being of its own congregation, not to mention the residents of the block, for having operated for so many years in the condition that it's in. The proposed structure, according to the plan submitted to the Buildings Department, does not include any plans for a fire sprinkler suppression system. As is required to do so, I submitted the fire code for that. Furthermore, as stated numerous times, the variance of the congregation is too large, and by that, it's an admission of its own guilt that it's over-occupying the structure that it's too big for. Skipping ahead, the fire hydrant in front is constantly obstructed, which even this morning, we chased somebody off it before we left to come here this morning. All day, every day. On August 29th, 2009, there was a fire in the synagogue that required the fire department to respond. I brought the fire report, some of which I need back because there's privileged information in there. A 1075 code was transmitted for a working fire with flames and smoke showing on arrival. Firefighters were able to extinguish the fire, but members of the FDNY were injured and had to be transported to area hospitals for treatment. Can I have just another 30 seconds, please? I'm the last speaker.
Please just wrap up.
Okay. In closing, 2005, 2006, 2007, firemen have died in line of duty due to illegal alterations that cause unpredictable conditions for us when we show up to do our job. It's already happened. Okay?
Thank
Now
you.
this isn't.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, shall I say. My name is Lou Melfi. My mom is Claire Melfi, who lives at 1778 East 28th Street. I have personal knowledge. I'm a temporary resident as well. I've been living there as well on and off for 20 to 30 years myself. I actually lived in 1782 East 28th Street before it became a synagogue. And presently, my daughter, and that's my son who just spoke, I have a 9-day old grandson that lives in the residence that I got to be concerned about, as well as my other grandson that lives there, and my mom. Her quality of life has been imperiled, and further development of this structure will further imperil her lifestyle. As it stands now, the quality of life situation on the block has diminished so badly, we can't imagine any surmountable amount of people coming into the area. As it stands now, my mother, when she comes down the stairs of our house, is impacted by the pedestrian traffic, as well as in certain cases, they even made a bus stop on the block in front of her house, and she's overcome by diesel fuel, which is also a health issue. I can't imagine her tranquility and peacefulness of the block being taken away from her, and her obstruction of view in the backyard. Her garden is what she knows, and to build on that would just be, it would be devastating. So I want the board to consider that as well.
Thank you. The next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Cleonice Melfi. I'm the owner, 1778 East 28. My house is attached to the synagogue. For 40 years, I live in the house to raise my family. And when they moved in 30 years ago, I tried to be peaceful and harmony with them. And I begged them, please, put the sun through the wall because it's impossible here to live. But 1 year comes in and the other one goes out. They never hear it. So I have nothing else to say. I want to live the rest of my life in peace. But my house is attached. And what they want to do, they're going to ruin the wall. They're going to ruin my life. I can't leave it there. Please understand the situation. I thank you. Make a good decision.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker.
Ed Jaworski, Mass Marine Homecrest Civic, and 1821 East 28th Street.
I have no issue with the fact of the importance of religious institutions in a community, and it's wonderful that this congregation is growing and is so active. I see a lot of familiar faces here, in fact. But remember, John Adams and other presidents of this nation have said, we are a nation of laws. You've heard about all the violations here, the tens of thousands of dollars in unpaid fines. It's something like $100,000. And this is very calculated because, in fact, a number of them from the late 1980s, early 1990s have already been written off under the city charter regulations. So this is very calculated as far as collecting these fines and violations. The Community Board 15, in fact, thought that the application was so ambiguous and deceptive, not mentioning things like the 2723 residents, which is part of the whole complex, that they overwhelmingly voted it down, and recognizing the fact that any hardship has been self-created here. I hope that you'll follow Community Board 15's example and vote this down unless all the violations are addressed and removed and all the fines are paid. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Ari Ilovitz. I've been a member of this congregation from the day it opened and continue to be a member of the congregation. I think a little history is in order. This is not merely your typical NIMBY opposition. The synagogue originally opened only in one building where the rabbi lived on top. The synagogue was on the first floor. There was no second building. There was no attaching structure between them. It was simply what it was, a very simple building. There was no changes to the outside that I recall. From the very inception, the neighbors who mostly represented here were starting a campaign of harassment. It was a campaign that continued for years. At the community board, one of Mrs. Melfi's sons discussed how he treated the rabbi gently. This is the rabbi who's no longer with us. I was a little confused because I wasn't sure if he was referring to the gentle way that feces and dead rats were left on the rabbi's doorstep, or the gentle way in which the phone was hung up after death threats called in at 2 in the morning. This was a campaign of harassment that utilized the offices of the community board at that time. And we had constant visits and inspections by various city agencies. It continued until the community affairs unit called a meeting at City Hall, and the community board and the various agencies were asked to explain their actions. Subsequent to that meeting, which the neighbors who were in opposition attended, and their motivation was clearly transparent to all, that campaign ceased and has not really been a factor since then. We have had occasional inspections of one or another, but nothing on the level that occurred then. So this is history I think you should be aware of. This is not simply not my backyard. This is not simply construction, which everybody has an issue with, and it's understandable. There's other motivations here. It's not all that it's presented as. And I want to address some of the specific issues. The largest crowds or number of people in the shul at any time is on a Saturday or one of our holidays, at which point there's no driving. Nobody in our congregation drives on Sabbath or a holiday. So I'm not sure how this one parking spot per 10 congregants is important. In the weekdays, we have several services, in the morning mostly. Parking was almost never a problem. In regards to people parking at the hydrant, well, everything that happens on that block that anybody finds detrimental, they immediately assume by the neighbors that is caused by members of the congregation. They've complained to us about a car parked at the hydrant. This was just in the last couple of months, overnight on a Friday night, and vociferously complained about it. And at some point, somebody was visiting on the block, drove the car off the block.
Your time is up.
Can I have another few seconds? Everybody else got it?
Okay, but really quickly.
Okay. Very quickly, I'd like to know how the gentleman in the fire department was able to gain access to our building without permission. I believe that's considered trespass. That happened again just in the last week. There is no bus stop for the synagogue. That's a school bus stop put there by the city.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker, please stick to the time limit. I know each person wants a few seconds more, but it just adds on.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members from BCA. Up to now, some of the speakers, I'm not a professional speaker, but I'll tell how I remember how our block and the block surrounding us, how it was. I moved in, my family, 1957. I'm the oldest living there. For a while, the block was very nice, very peaceful. Unfortunately, later on in the 60s, some people, older people, when they couldn't live by themselves, the inmates died. So they went to live whether with their children or they went to older houses, and the neighborhood changed. Unfortunately, it changed for the worst. New people moved in. Somebody in that time in the 60s was very turmoil. The adolescents, the younger people revolted because the Vietnam War was on, and there was no respect for property. There was no respect for the community. They were sitting outside, drinking beer, throwing the cans in the gutter, smoking. At that time they smoked pot or regular cigarettes, and having the big radios, they call them boot boxes, playing to the highest octave till 3 o'clock in the morning. We have to call out the police many times. It was breaking in the houses, vandalism. They had friends which they brought from other places all together. They did vandalism. But we put out the cans Tuesday and for Friday to collect the garbage. In the morning, all the cans were in the middle of the street and guarded. But it went on for a nice few years. Then later on, people, thank God, in 1985, our late rabbi, blessed memory, came. He took a risk. He had courage in a time like havoc, turmoil. He opened out the shul. He had only a few people congregate which they helped him. And little by little, he had even a problem to get a quorum.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Beg pardon?
Your time is up.
What time?
The time is over.
This was in 1985.
Yeah, I'm sorry, your time to speak is over. Your time is over.
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
Right. You were only given 3 minutes, and that time is over. Thank you. So, thank you.
The people sold the house.
All right, I'm
Houses
sorry,
became
sir.
available.
If you can, yes, I'm sorry, your time
I
is
want
over.
to bring out a point.
I understand that. but
Excuse me. I want to bring out the point how the neighborhood
I'm
improved.
sorry, your time is over.
Thanks for the shul.
I understand that, but
People
your time
bought
is
houses. They fixed them up.
up. I'm sorry, your time
Fixed
is
up the gardens. Everything was
understand,
no
but
more
your time is up.
beautified. Was peace. We organized a patrol, which patrols every night.
We'll have the next speaker. Thank you, sir. The next speaker, please.
Oh, we short time.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's fine.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
I know we short on time.
All right. The next.
But it seems
I'm sorry. The next speaker. Can the next speaker please come
seems I have to tell the story. I always have to tell the story. I'm a Holocaust
but
survivor.
I understand, but,
that shul is not only a congregation. It's like a home to every one of
Okay.
us.
All right. Thank you.
I want to show the board that how important it is.
You can submit to us in writing.
I have an appointment with a cardiologist for 2 o'clock, 2:15. I forgot my appointment. Two years
Okay.
ago, I had a heart attack and triple surgery. So how important that it is, and approved, the neighborhood approved much more.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And the real estate, everybody benefits now, that the real estate's went up 10 times as much.
Thank you. The next speaker?
Good afternoon. My name is Moshe Bergman. I'm a rabbi in the area, and I have the privilege to lecture on a weekly basis in Rabbi Rattenberg's shul. I lecture in business ethics and other religious studies. On a regular Sunday morning, when I lecture in this shul, we have up to 60, 70 people in attendance. It's quite often that we need to move around from one room to the other because there is not enough space where I am lecturing, and it creates quite a imposition on many of the people that they cannot do so comfortably. I'm sure many more people would attend if they would have the appropriate space. When there's a weekend and there is a event going on in the shul, let it be a religious event, a bar mitzvah, or any other occasion, when I do visit this shul, it's quite common when I get there, there is no space, there are no chairs, there's nowhere to actually settle down. And every time I walk in, there is such a wonderful unity. It's such a harmonious place. Rabbi Rattenberg infuses into this community such a pleasant and beautiful atmosphere. And on a personal note, there is never a time where any of the rabbis in the area call on Rabbi Rattenberg to help out with any personal situation for anybody in the community, let it be men, women, and children, where he's not there to help them. I would just appreciate if this board would extend all possible courtesies to this community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker?
My name is Frederick Stern, 1598 East 28th Street. About a year and a half ago, I was involved in a car accident. My father was with me in the car. He passed away on the spot. The illegal punk hit us. He died on the spot. I had several broken bones, a compressed sternum, concussion, etc., etc. And there's a thing called physical help and there's a thing called mental help. I'm over here to say I'm thank the community, which is only supportive because of the rabbi who was there for me. And it's a very, very difficult time when you see a loved one die in front of your eyes and you're in front of whatever numerous positions in the hospital. And the only reason why I was able to get close to the rabbi and he was able to come close and give us comfort and support was the fact that there was a synagogue with such warmness. And for that, I hope that the board understands that this synagogue is not just a place of worship, it's also a place of moral support, and it is a community asset. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker?
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Korsinski. I'm a resident on East 29th Street, around the corner from where the synagogue is located. I've been a resident since 2009. I just wanted to make sure the board understands that the community has been growing, particularly even just my block alone. Within the last year, 3 families came into the community that are now becoming part of the synagogue. So it's a growing area. One thing, I've heard a number of things earlier from other people who were speaking. Again, I totally agree with the fact that the rabbi is part, it's a community, and the need is that the community be where it is right now. And the reason for that is that at the congregants, it's an Orthodox synagogue. People need to be able to walk to the synagogue, and it's right there. And as the reason it's growing is that people in the community are moving in, and that's something that the synagogue, and I believe the plans is there to incorporate that aspect of it as well. So we want to ask that the board support the applications. You see, a lot of people came here from while they're busy days, and they're here today to support it. And there's many, many more people that would want to be here, they just simply can't. giving time constraints, and I think that the board should appreciate that. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Dr. Rudolph Weinstein. I'm a neighbor of the synagogue at 1673 East 28th Street. I also happen to be president of a congregation a block in the other direction as well. I can tell you personally, as a member of the community, and I've been living there about 33 years, the community has changed since Rabbi Rattenberg came into the neighborhood. And as you can tell from the emotions of the people here, that this is an emotional issue. People who have homes and parents understand the Malfi family. And conversely, people who have children and want the services that Rabbi Rattenberg uniquely provides to the community is something that hangs in the balance before all of you. And we recognize the decision that you have to make. But what we basically are imploring you to recognize, not to disregard the personal rights of personal property, but also to understand that a community's right as well hangs in the balance here. There's a quality of life issue here that goes far beyond sunlight, and trees, and inconvenient parking. We live 2 blocks away from Madison High School. We have, unfortunately, police escorts in the morning and the evening because children come into the community and use the homes as places to sit and smoke and park and drink and drop beer cans. It's not always convenient, but we live together because New York City is a family. It's a community. We learn to get along. So all I ask you is please work with us as we would like to work with you. Do things legally, do things in a way that makes sense, but above all, with consideration of our neighbors, with consideration of all our people. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker. Are there any more speakers? Yes, you've already spoken? I'm sorry. You can talk to our staff. You can't ask questions right now. Any speakers on this item? All right, Ms. Altman. Are there questions for the applicant? Any questions? All right, I just have a few questions. Do you have a public assembly permit?
I don't know the answer to that, and I will look into that. I heard that comment from the opposition today.
All right, and is the building sprinklered?
Again, that was something that was brought up
But
today,
if
and I
some of the
certainly will look
things-
into
If you're
it.
doing certain improvements with increasing the occupancy of the building, can you explain that to us as well? Just other building code upgrades that you may do as a part of your proposal.
We'll be glad to detail that.
All right. I have another question, which it actually goes back to the design. And based on some of the testimony we heard today, I would encourage you to look at swapping the home to the side, which is actually adjacent to the residential building, I think Melfi residence.
Right, the suggestion is
Right.
take the rabbi's
But-
residence from the left,
exactly.
move it to the right.
Move it to the right. I think it'll help because you won't actually have to disturb much of the construction. And in terms of the extension, if you look at what you have right now, leaving side, cutting back that from the rear yard line, it also seems that you have an office and a court that I think you should remove. And so you won't have this extension at the back above the first floor, which is allowed as of right. So if you can take a look at that.
Remove the office and I didn't hear what the other.
You have a court, and you've
A
got the
court.
court right in the middle. In fact, you've created that court to give light and air to the rabbi's apartment. It seems to me that if you didn't put that office, you wouldn't have to create the court. And you won't have this extension that goes up to 23 feet that will extend all the way at the rear towards the side of, I guess, Mrs. Melfi's home.
I understand your comments.
will
I will
also, I
speak to
think-
the architect about this.
Right, I think we want to see that alternative, and we'll speak to the architect. It doesn't seem like it should be an issue. Yes, Commissioner.
And can you also put sound attenuation along the side of the Melfi?
Of course. Without even speaking to the architect, that I can certainly say.
Right,
we're-
on all the
Of course.
floors, absolutely.
Of course.
All right, just a few other questions. Do you have many events during the year where people drive to this location? I understand that during the high holidays, and please do not speak from the audience.
I'm,
Can you please? Yes.
I'm understanding from my client that is not the case.
Okay, but can you just explain to, I know that they have events because somebody over here.
Well, some
explained about
events
that.
certainly do
Right, I
occur,
just
but
want to understand what this.
frequency,
synagogues-
is that what your
Yeah,
question is?
Exactly. Frequency, when people do drive the site and there are certain.
So the
accessory
frequency
type
of
uses.
events, not on the Sabbath.
Not on the Sabbath. Okay, and I think, the other questions that we normally ask when it has to do with an enlargement of a synagogue or shul is to also sort of understand if you have, that there won't be any catering, commercial catering on the site.
This is
And
not going to
al-
be a commercial catering
Okay,
facility.
and also if there's.
I believe that's detailed in my statement, but if not, I will certainly add it.
Okay, I'm just reminding you. If it's been put there, that's fine. And also, any kind of plan in terms of removal of garbage from the site. If you can give us some explanation about that.
I'll make sure that we have a plan for refuse.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, we'll continue the hearing. How much time do you need to get back to us? I know your architect is going to.
I was going to say, I'm giving my architect a lot of work, or their architect in particular a lot of work. We
How
could
about
have,
June 10th?
that would be fine.
Okay, so June 10th, and we'll continue the hearing on June 24th.
June 24th, you said?
June 24th.
Thank you and bless you.
This concludes the public hearing for May 13, 2014.